Part 28. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 279. Bang. A .30-06 rifle bullet passed through the tentacles, flying randomly and shot into the center of the flower. Unexpectedly, Ramon's screams appeared again, and unlike before, this time the screams were accompanied by the trembling of the whole building. Well done, Leon. Regardless of whether Leon's shot just hit Ramon's weakness, it was enough to confirm the location of Ramon's body for Luo Guang. Without saying a word, Luo Guang rushed towards Ramon, avoiding the gnawing attacks of the three-toothed fleshy leaves, and jumped directly onto the conveyor pipe. Then, without bothering to run, he used his legs to exert force and jumped towards the center of the flower. The knot of the flower was suddenly stretched from the inside out, and countless thorny tentacles appeared, whipping towards Luo Guang at the same time, piercing straight towards him. Haha, this is similar to the situation faced by the right-hand. Luo Guang sneered, ignoring the tentacles that could not break through the defense, and this time he was not facing the boss alone. When Leon saw Luo Guang acting recklessly, he had no time to stop him. He could only support Luo Guang with all his strength. He raised his Springfield rifle and fired at the center of the flower. He did not seek to hit the weak point, but to interfere with the enemy. The bullet shot off the stinging tentacles and finally successfully shot into the flower. This caused Ramon to stop attacking because of the pain, or in other words, the attack paused for a moment. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Luo Guang successfully broke out of the tentacle surrounding net. This is the instinctive reaction of people who have never experienced fighting or other training after being injured, so there is a saying that if you want to learn to fight, you must first learn to be beaten. Luo Guang took out his shotgun and pointed it at the center and emptied the magazine, leaving 2 grenades with the safety on before retreating immediately. When retreating, he simply threw away the shotgun, then pulled out his pistol. 2 shots broke Ramon's eyes, causing Ramon to lose his ability to observe the outside world again. The penetrating attack was supplemented by Leon, so he did not use the broken wing butterfly pistol and chose to keep one hand. Ramon relied on the feeling of Luo Guang stepping on the conveyor pipe, and then controlled the tentacles to continue attacking it, but the attack always fell behind Luo Guang and returned in vain. I don't know whether it was Leon's continuous penetrating attacks that Ramon couldn't bear, or whether his grown eyes were accurately cleaned out by Luo Guang many times, leaving him in a passive state of being beaten all the time. Ramon couldn't bear it any longer, and his true form appeared in front of Luo Guang and the others. It is very similar to the shape of the fake body I saw before, but the whole thing is enlarged more than 3 times, and it has been hidden behind the flowers like the background plate. In this form, Ramon is no longer like a plant that can only be fixed in one place. Those tentacles have become his hands and feet, which are sticky and can carry him quickly on walls, ceilings, and other places. Luo Guang is still Ramon's first target. The first mouthful of black water the true body spat was towards Luo Guang. Maybe he had been wanting to spit on Luo Guang before. Taking advantage of the enemy's attack, Leon took the opportunity to sneak attack Ramon from behind. The weak point of the eyeball was behind Ramon. A leaf of flesh was closed behind it for defense, but the penetrating power of the Springfield rifle should not be underestimated. It shot directly through the defense and hit the weak point. Ramon fell to the ground, and Luo Guang took the opportunity to throw the remaining wooden handle grenades onto the stopped Ramon. The enemy is huge and should have a lot of energy in his body, but Leon and the others have limited time. Luo Guang doesn't care whether his abilities will be exposed or not, and is ready to rush out and scorch all the enemy's weaknesses and all the things that resemble Ramon himself. At this moment, the door they entered was pushed open, and Diego, wearing a purple-black robe, walked in, attracting the attention of Luo Guang and Leon, causing them to run directly towards each other. "You two, I have brought you something good." As soon as Diego came in, he saw his traitor motionless and bathed in the explosion of the grenade, and he knew that he had arrived at the right time. He carried an RPG-7 rocket launcher in one hand, came to the top of the platform where Luo Guang and the others were, and then threw both rocket launchers down. "This is your glory? May the glory of the Lord give you the power to destroy demons," Diego shouted loudly. Luo Guang and Leon caught the rocket launcher and knew the type of ammunition through the warhead. The one in Lion's hand was a high explosive warhead, while the one in his hand was a hollow charge armor-piercing projectile, which could use metal jets to kill enemies behind armor. First, Luo Guang pulled the trigger, and the rocket flew away from the launch tube. Then the rocket extended range engine at the rear of the projectile started. The warhead quickly hit Ramon's body, and then the metal flow generated by the explosion was shot directly into the weak point behind Ramon. No goodbye. Leon saw the right moment and fired the rocket launcher in his hand from a squatting position. The high explosive projectile hit the enemy's entire body, shrouding Ramon in flames and explosions. The accompanying loud noise directly drowned out Ramon's last words. "Thank you." Diego jumped down and came to Luo Guang's side. Luo Guang asked, "Are you done with your revenge? The leader of the Guangming sect is still doing evil." Diego shook his head. "You don't need to test me, you will also solve the matter of the Illuminati cult next, so we will stop here." As soon as Diego finished speaking, the black-robed Avengers also walked in. Some carried a barrel, while others carried a box in pairs. When Luo Guang and the others were fighting Ramon fiercely, Diego brought everyone here. Although Diego said before that they were not good at fighting, it was obvious that they had cleared up all the fish that had slipped through the castle to get here. When Louis saw Diego and the others, he thought the cultists were coming. Fortunately, Ashley was by his side, and he stopped Louis in time as he raised his aim, and explained to him about the Avengers. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. Luo Guang, Leon, Ashley and the others also walked in. Louis looked at Diego and the others with curiosity, walked to Leon, and asked in a low voice, "This is also the first time I know that there is a force like the Avengers here in this place, and within their bodies." He judged it by the glowing red eyes of Diego and the others, but before he finished speaking, Leon had already nodded to express that he knew that Diego and the others were also infected with the Plaka parasite. "Little sister over there, do you carry our sacred fire with you?" Diego turned back and said to Ashley. "What? Holy fire? It's the kerosene lamp you got from the Knight's Hall." These sacred fire kerosene lamps were hidden there by Diego. As for why he knew that Ashley took them, it was because he saw the base of the kerosene lamps exposed under the clothes behind Ashley's back. Only then did Ashley react and handed the kerosene lamp tied to her back to Diego. "Oh, here it is." Diego did not take it, but the two men in black robes beside him took it separately. Looking back, Diego took out a thick book from his chest and said, "This is our family's notepad. It records everything about our family." I saw him opening the notepad, taking the pen handed over by the man in black robes, and started writing on it, while still talking. "Back then, in order to protect the secret of parasites, our family did not dare to attract outsiders into the family. The reason for the dwarfism that has troubled Ramon since he was born was probably due to incest. His physical condition, therefore, they are much weaker than normal children." At this time, Diego seemed to have turned back into the majestic Earl, no longer the leader of the Avengers, and began to talk about his own affairs. "I wrote this sentence on this notepad: it will be better if he dies of illness. Now looking back on my life, if I had chosen to change the family rules and give birth to a healthy child, everything after that would have been different. It will happen." Diego once walked out of this remote mountainous area and met a girl he liked. However, due to family training, he gave up that relationship and returned to the castle. When he went dormant to develop his power and prepare for counterattack, he might not have thought about not going to war with his own children. But none of this seems to be important anymore. Diego did not cross out the curse words he once said to Ramon, but only added the title Devil Count after Ramon's name. Then, under Ramon's name, he added the sentence, "Two warriors from the outside world solved the demon count for the Salazar family and recaptured the defiled castle, so that the Salazar family could regain their mastership of Asylum." After writing, Diego closed the notepad and handed it to Luo Guang. "This is this." Luo Guang was curious, but still took the notepad. "The weapons and ammunition in the box, as well as this notepad, are all handed over to you. We will also move towards our own ending." Two men in black robes opened the corks of the barrels they carried on their backs, and poured the liquid inside into the space below. At the same time, another man in black robes took out a match and lit the liquid. The blue-white flame ignited. It was the sacred fire of the Salazar family, a weapon that has been used to deal with parasites for hundreds of years. Can't this fire only immobilize those parasites? Diego smiled bitterly. His family had tried to improve the holy fire, but had never succeeded. Otherwise, he might have launched a counterattack long ago instead of waiting for outside warriors. The situation you mentioned will indeed occur when dealing with living parasites, but it is different now that the parasite is dead. There was not much liquid in the barrel, but it quickly ignited the entire bottom space. The residue left by the growth of parasites was quickly ignited, and the holy fire spread quickly. It can be seen that if those parasites have not evolved the kind of mucus that isolates the holy fire, then just a little bit of the holy fire will quickly ignite the entire parasite. Diego took the kerosene lamp containing the holy fire from the hands of the two men in black robes, and then saw the men in black robes walking to both sides of the platform, taking off their black robes, revealing their pale and broken bodies. Some people's faces were sprayed with sulfuric acid, making them look horrifying. Some people's bodies are covered with whip marks and their bodies are completely bruised. Some people are missing both hands and their bodies are already mutilated. But they were all silent. After completing their revenge, they could sleep peacefully. No one shouted the command, so they jumped off the platform without hesitation and threw themselves into the holy fire. Next, it's up to Ramon and I. Let the holy fire wash away the sins on our bodies. Diego threw one of the kerosene lamps onto Ramon's body and used a match to ignite the liquid leaking from the lamp. The blue fire appeared and Diego was very close, but he was not affected because the parasite in his body was a very ancient version and had not evolved the function of preventing blue fire at all. Luo Guang stared at Ramon's body closely, making sure that the other party was not a fake corpse, and that there was no mucus on the body that could resist the burning of the holy fire. Diego seemed to notice Luo Guang's caution and stood with him, looking at his son. Until Ramon's body turned to ashes, he raised his right hand, with the last holy fire kerosene lamp on his palm. Although our family finally fell into the claws of the devil, we were once glorious and worked hard for mankind. I hope someone can remember our merits and demerits, and learn from them. Take off the hood, take off the scarf that covered most of his face, and Diego showed his thin face. The years and betrayal have engraved the traces of time on his face, but his eyes are still so bright, which is the most iconic feature of the majestic Earl. Luo Guang unscrewed the kerosene lamp, poured the fuel inside into Diego's palm, and then took out the lighter. "Goodbye, Earl." Under the gaze of everyone, Diego was instantly wrapped in blue fire, but there was no trace of pain on his face, but a relieved smile. Just stand there until the last moment of his life. "Louis, parasites shouldn't do such things as killing themselves, right?" Luo Guang looked at the ashes on the ground, and asked after the last bit of blue fire was extinguished. Louis put away his frivolity and silently offered his respect to Diego. Although he just met these Avengers, he could also feel their determination. After hearing Luo Guang's words, Louis did not answer immediately, and finally did not give Luo Guang an accurate answer. Maybe this is the embodiment of human will. At that time, Luo Guang and others talked to Diego and others about the fact that they were also parasite infected. Leon didn't quite believe that Diego would choose to commit suicide, and said, "I didn't expect them to really do this." Diego did not hide what they wanted to do in the end, but Luo Guang and others didn't really believe it, but they needed the help of the Avengers at that time, so they didn't question it too much. Until just now, they saw the black-robed man jump into the sea of fire without hesitation, and Diego stood there to let the holy fire wash himself. That's why Luo Guang asked Louis such a question. He didn't believe that Diego would commit suicide before, because he didn't think that the Plaka parasite would allow its host to commit suicide. After the commemoration, everyone opened the box that Diego and the others had brought. It was full of bullets, and there were 2 MP-40 submachine guns that had been maintained and had scratches on them, but they looked 90% new. The 2 weapons were taken by Leon and Louis respectively. In addition to these, there was also a Kar 98K rifle, which also had no scope and was a version manufactured before World War II. The production process and quality were much better than those after the outbreak of the war, so Luo Guang took it directly to use. After replenishing the ammunition, several people were about to set off when they heard the footsteps of someone coming in. Leon raised his gun and looked back, exclaiming, "Ada. Good evening, can you send me some supplies? I'll exchange it with a speedboat that can go to the Holy Island." Ada stood on the platform on the upper floor, looking at Luo Guang and others, shaking a key with a silver light in her hand. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 280. Ada, isn't your mission Amber? Luo Guang loaded the Kar 98K rifle in his hand and asked. Ada looked like she was being reminded, but she didn't want to communicate with Luo Guang more, so she turned to look at Louis and said, "Yes, Louis, aren't you going to make a deal with us? You ran so fast because you didn't want to leave. Here." Louis did originally plan to meet up with Leon and others at the dance hall, but Ada arrived at the dance hall before Leon and the others, so he was forced to have no choice but to run into the dance hall and use those hidden bugs to throw Ada away. The hidden bug didn't recognize his relatives, so he was forced to flee to the underground mine. At that time, he tried to contact Leon but was unable to do so because of the signal interruption. Ada was in a similar situation, but she used the grapple gun to throw away the hidden bugs, and then returned to the dance hall to continue searching for Louis and catch him back. Unexpectedly, she saw Leon and the others heading towards the dance hall. "Sorry, beauty." They paid higher, Louis said, took out Amber, and then handed it to Luo Guang under Ada's gaze. Luo Guang took it with one hand and threw it into his backpack, seemingly not thinking it was anything important. Ada did not take advantage of this opportunity to grab Amber, and the mission objectives fell into Luo Guang's hands. She no longer struggled with the transaction with Louis. She was so realistic, and turned to Luo Guang and said, "In that case, let me make a deal with you, Luo Guang." "Tell me about it." With the bullet loaded, Luo Guang put the 98K rifle behind his back and looked at Ada. Ashley was also looking at Ada with curiosity at this time, seeming to be thinking about the charm of that woman and why Luo Guang wanted to take her back, while Leon also seemed to have no connection with this woman. "Your mission is to catch me, not to bring back Amber." "In that case, why don't you give me Amber and I'll let you catch me and bring it back? Anyway, she could escape easily before, even if she was caught this time. Even if she catches her, she can find an opportunity. The one she loves is so unscrupulous." Ada's words shook Leon's shoulders. He couldn't help but think that the reason why Luo Guang's superior wanted to arrest Ada was because he was greedy for her body. "Sorry, that was the previous mission. The current mission is that both you and Amber are my mission targets." As soon as Luo Guang finished speaking, Ada took a step back unconsciously, but immediately stopped. "Come down." Her intuition sounded the alarm, telling her that she had been targeted by Luo Guang and that if she tried to escape, she would be captured. "Luo Guang, Amber is related to parasites. If you take it back, won't it be used by careerists and bring disaster to the world? Why don't we destroy Amber here?" Leon persuaded. Luo Guang didn't look at Leon and replied, "I'm sorry, Leon. And even if I don't bring Amber back, do you think they can't find the Plaka parasite? There will be fish slipping through the net in this area every minute." If he remembered correctly, there was a fish with parasites in the lake next to the village. "But Amber is special," Leon argued. Louis came out to smooth things over, held Leon's excited shoulders, and said, "Leon, you have to trust your companions." He knew that Amber was a useless thing, so he didn't want to see Leon conflict with his teammates because of a fake. Leon didn't speak. After calming down, he realized that he seemed to be unknowingly affected by what Ada said before. If Luo Guang really planned to hand over the Amber, there would be no need to wait for Louis to hand over the Amber to him on his own initiative. Luo Guang would have asked Louis to get it. He wanted to ask Luo Guang's true purpose, but now was not a good time. Louis was right, he and Luo Guang spent much longer together than Ada, and he should trust Luo Guang. Ada will not agree to you destroying Amber. After Luo Guang said this, Aiden knew that the other party would not destroy her mission target, so sooner or later she would have a chance to take back Amber. Ada said with a slight threat, "The transaction must be a win-win situation, so why don't we communicate well? Oh, by the way, it's better to hurry up, otherwise you won't have time to go to the island to clean up the parasites. This is a problem. Let's talk as we walk and lead the way." Luo Guang didn't propose any plan because he had already thought about how to solve this problem. Leon also has parasites in his body. Luo Guang's words are also testing whether Leon's life is more important to Ada than her mission. Although he didn't have much communication with Ada, Luo Guang could refer to Ada's character in the game for analysis. At least as a free commercial spy, her ability to complete her mission was fundamental to her success. Okay, Aiden nodded in agreement after thinking for a moment, and did not put forward any other opinions. Everyone got on the speedboat. Leon took Ada's key and was in charge of driving the boat. Louis sat in the co-pilot's seat. In the back row were Ashley, Luo Guang, and Ada from left to right. As for Xiaobai, he sat in Ash's seat. Li's lap, held by her. After Ada told Leon the route to the island, Luo Guang spoke first. "You are now joining the HCF organization to work for Wesker, right?" Luo Guang's first words made Ada wonder if the HCF organization had an undercover agent from the other party. She had only officially joined not long ago, and this was her first mission. If there wasn't an undercover agent, how could Luo Guang or the X organization behind him know his current identity so quickly? "It doesn't matter if you don't want to answer. Anyway, I will report it to my superiors." Luo Guang accepted Ada's acquiescence. "What on earth do you want to do?" "Actually, it's nothing. Wesker and I are life and death friends, so I just wanted to give you a ride. After we finish dealing with the Illuminati, I'll go back with you to organize a mission for HCF, and then I'll take you and Amber go back and deliver the business." Luo Guang did not explain the specific method, just to prevent the other party from making arrangements in advance. Ada hummed back, "Does that mean you have to take me to that difficult man no matter what?" She deliberately described Simmons as a difficult man, not only to prevent Leon from knowing his name, but also to arouse Leon's anger. "Didn't you plan this way before? There's nothing you can do about it? Leon has been so coquettish all the way and hasn't given me an answer yet. I have to make plans in advance." Hearing Luo Guang's words, Leon lowered his head slightly. This was indeed his problem. While listening, Louis observed Leon's expression, and somewhat understood the awkwardness of the relationship between Leon and Ada. The specific situation is unclear, but Leon seems to be the kind of person with a full sense of justice, and Ada's job does not seem to be glorious. It can be said that one is good and the other is evil. Normally, they should not interact with each other until death. Opposition is the right thing to do, and this became one of the reasons for the awkward relationship between the two of them. On the other side, Ashley, who was pretending to play with Xiaobai, had actually been listening to their conversation with her ears pricked up, and she also thought about Louis. Ada, if you don't believe me, you can also believe in Leon. I only trust my own judgment. Ada directly denied Luo Guang's words, but Luo Guang said unyieldingly, stop lying, the way you snicker has given you away. He was just talking nonsense, but Ada clearly put away her professional smile, but did not deny it, otherwise it would only make others think she was hiding something. But Louis saw that the corners of Leon's mouth had also turned up just now. The relationship between Leon and Ada still needs some time, especially since Ada has been accustomed to living alone for so many years. It is unrealistic for you to ask her to confirm their relationship with Leon now. But Luo Guang didn't want the two of them to still be flirting with each other after knowing each other for more than 10 years. He occasionally pushed her like a mother, this handsome guy in Leon is very popular, so you have to hurry up. Ashley and Louis both laughed, making Leon feel awkward and shy. Ada concealed her emotions and said with a cold face, that has nothing to do with me. Whether Leon wants to be with someone else or not is not my decision. Luo Guang smiled slightly and understood that Ada also had a bit of a tsundere attribute, but she was too little coquettish. Back to business, Ada, do you want to work with us to deal with the Illuminati? Or do you plan to go to the Illuminati's research institute to see if you can find any other Amber? After a pause, Luo Guang continued, if you don't find Amber, then come to us at the last moment. So troublesome, why don't you give me Amber now? And aren't you worried that bad people will use it to do bad things after I take Amber back? Ada didn't believe the nonsense that Luo Guang and Wesker were friends of life and death. She didn't say this before because she didn't want to prove in front of Leon that she had joined Wesker's camp. Leon knows Chris' sister Claire from the former STARS unit, and it is very likely that he knows about Wesker from Chris, and that person is the #1 bad guy. His silence may seem like acquiescence to Leon, but there is always a chance to redeem himself. Because she didn't really want to work for Wesker when she joined the HCF organization, but organization. And she is not someone who can take time off, and her bank account is likely to be monitored by Organization X, so she joins the HCF organization to work and make money. It doesn't matter. If you really do this, it will stop Leon's thoughts. He said it so bluntly, causing Leon, who was sailing the boat, to hold the steering wheel tightly, for fear that Ada's reply might contain answers he didn't want to hear. In order to be mysterious, or not to be true to the facts, Ada did not give an accurate answer, but just said, then we will wait and see. I won't be with you when I get there. No one said anything to persuade him to stay. The two sides had different opinions and did not seek each other. Luo Guang didn't say anything that the other party was not allowed to leave. He had the Amber that the other party needed, so he was not afraid that the other party would not come back. As for Ada finding other Amber in the laboratory, Luo Guang thinks it is unlikely, otherwise Master Sadler would not care so much about the Amber stolen by Louis, and Louis had already reminded him. As she said that, she stood up and asked Leon to stop next to a cliff. If you continue walking forward, you will see a path that can be climbed up. From there, you will not be afraid of being attacked by those mercenaries and their boats when you land on the island. It's sinking. Ada took out her grapple gun, bent over, and whispered in Leon's ear in front of her, trust me. Ada. Leon turned around and was about to call Ada, but the other party had already followed the grappling gun, left the speedboat, and flew over the cliff. Everyone has left. If you have anything to say, you have to say it as soon as possible. As the bystanders knew, Louis, who was observing Leon all the way, said, and Ashley, who was sitting in the back row, also nodded. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. Of course I know Leon sighed, took hold of the steering wheel again, and controlled the speedboat to go where Ada said. After tying up the speedboat, Luo Guang reached out to pick up Ashley on the trail, and then asked Louis, Lewis, do Ashley and the others want to take an injection of parasite inhibitor now? The inhibitory medicine does not have to be used after it has expired, but I only have 3 inhibitory medicines left in the box now, so I have to save them before arriving at my laboratory. Where is your research laboratory? On the mountain. All the important facilities of the Illuminati sect are built on the mountain. Sadler used the Salazar family's money to hire many mercenaries, and injected them all with Plaka parasites, so the next battle will not be easy. The enemy also knows how to use firearms. A few people were walking and talking when suddenly a few drops of rain fell. It's raining again. Ashley hated the feeling of her clothes getting wet and sticking to her body. Ziobai on the side also barked. It also hates rainy days. Several people walked to a sea cave to take shelter from the rain, just in time for Lewis to inject Leon and the others with inhibitory drugs. Now that they were very close to the Sadler leader, they had to be fully prepared. By the way, Lewis, did you take this route when you escaped before? When Ada suggested it just now, Lewis didn't raise any objection, so that's why Leon said this. As for the Amber issue, Lewis had already told Luo Guang and Leon after landing that it was a fake. Lewis shrugged and replied, "How is it possible? I must first find a chance to leave the island, and then get rid of the cultists who are monitoring me. It is too difficult to escape directly from here. I can't find a safe place even if I drive a speedboat until I run out of gas, a place where people can stay." "Ashley, put this on." Leon took off his body armor and put it on Ashley, then helped her adjust it so that her chest would not be too tight. Luo Guang thought for a moment and said, "I will go for the next battle. You are responsible for protecting Ashley's safety and covering me from a distance. It just so happens that Leon will be the sniper and Lewis will be the observer. Is this too dangerous? How about you, Luo Guang? Wear this body armor," Ashley said quickly. "It's okay, and this is just a plan. I think the rain may get heavier, so we will still focus on hidden assassinations, just like what Leon did before." Leon nodded. Taking advantage of the heavy rain, he could use his rifle to cover Luo Guang, but just when they were about to set off under the heavy rain, the communicator on his body rang. "Is there a signal?" There had been no signal in the castle before. As time passed, he didn't waste time to see if the signal had been restored, so Leon couldn't help but be a little surprised when he received the communication contact. "This is the Eagle's Nest, Vulture 1, please report your situation." Not only Leon, Luo Guang also received a text message from Simmons. It was time to lay some groundwork for his next plan. "You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 281. Report the mission. Simmons's message only had one sentence, but Luo Guang still noticed the anxiety behind him. After Luo Guang confirmed that no one else had peeked at his phone and that everyone was focused on Leon, he took out 2 phones with both hands and started typing on the keyboard to arrange things. He first replied to Simmons. It was mentioned before that Ada works for an organization called HCF, and her mission this time was sent by that organization. I also overheard that the leader of that organization is also a man named Albert Wesker. Without saying anything, Luo Guang first put on some eye drops. Simmons knew the handsome Wesker, so it was easy to provoke Simmons' jealousy and make him go against the HCF organization. I am now tracking Ada all the way to a small island. Although I have lost her trace, as long as the organization blocks the sea and air area here, Ada will be trapped without waiting for the other party to reply. Luo Guang first offered the plan, pretending to be thinking about Simmons. Looking at Luo Guang's plan, Simmons immediately went to arrange it, but his arrangement was urgently stopped. Simmons is indeed the current leader of the family, but this position is rotated, using a voting system to select the family that will serve as the leader, and then the family will nominate a suitable leader. Then the leader will have to accept another round of interviews or tests from various families before he can officially take up this position. That's why Simmons secretly searched for Ada before, and even had to post tasks on the task board through private channels and pay Luo Guang privately. The kidnapping of the president's daughter is related to the prestige and reputation of the lighthouse country, so it has been concerned by various families in the X organization, and other families are not fools. The staff in the Eagle's Nest have spies from other families. Although the situation was urgent at the time, Luo Guang quickly took a plane and a car to the village, but it was enough for him to arrange some things through text messages. For example, tell the Donald family not to let Simmons let himself go too much for personal matters for the benefit of the X organization. The top priority now is to save the president's daughter, but your arrangement does not seem to be for saving the president's daughter, but more like to prevent certain people from leaving the island. Other families guessed Simmons' real purpose, so they all used this reason to object. This matter itself is a secret operation, and it is not easy to leak out. Now it is relatively simple for the personnel of the X organization to complete the blockade in the deep mountains and old forests as long as the special forces are lurking and on standby. It does not take much resources and power. But if you want to blockade a small island, at least warships and aircraft must be dispatched, and then a lot of resources will be consumed. And if warships and aircraft are dispatched, not to mention Spain, intelligence officers from other countries will definitely focus on the island where Luo Guang and his team are. Sooner or later, the kidnapping of the president's daughter will be exposed. The reason why the Church of Light did this in Spain was also for this consideration, because Sadler only needed 1 or 2 days to complete the parasitism, and then put Ashley back to infect all the senior officials of the lighthouse country. Someone stopped me from blocking that place, so I can only get you an armed helicopter for rescue, which will come in about an hour and a half. You first send the president's daughter to the helicopter, and then stay to continue the mission. I will send support to you. Simmons wanted to quickly finish the mission of rescuing the president's daughter, and then Luo Guang would go to catch Ada alone, and he would prepare a private helicopter to pick up Luo Guang. As for personnel support, he had received a call from the family, so it was not a good situation to use the family's power at will. As for his personal power, many of them were hidden under the family's nose, and now was not the time to show it. But she now has parasites in her body, and the infection stage has reached the middle stage. We have to find a solution on the spot, otherwise taking her back will only bring trouble to the country. Luo Guang exaggerated the degree of Ashley's infection and pointed out the problems that would result if it was not solved on the spot. If an investigation was to be carried out later, he would not have to take the blame. He could not afford to offend the X organization, but he could afford to offend the president of the lighthouse country? Of course, these are only useful when the other party investigates within the rules. However, even if the other party is not a martial artist, he has a preset escape route, and he will also tell the other party what will happen when he is not a martial artist, so that he can use his hidden strength to catch the other party off guard. A little late, Simmons answered Luo Guang. He did not say that he would abandon Ashley or that the lighthouse country's technology was the best in the world. Instead, he squeezed Luo Guang, "You still have an hour and a half to solve this problem?" Luo Guang cursed, but he could only reply with a "received," but it finally delayed the time for Simmons to officially intervene in this matter. On the other side, Leon also told Hannigan a summary of the matter. Vulture 1, I have contacted a fully armed helicopter for you. It will arrive in about an hour and a half. I will tell the other party the communication channel, and he will contact you directly after he arrives. Simmons said that he was fighting for an armed helicopter. In fact, he saw Hannigan mobilize his connections to contact the helicopter pilot, so he took the opportunity to say that he had fought for the helicopter. Received. We will solve the problem of parasites in the young eagle as soon as possible. Leon also got a time limit of 1.5 hours, but he and Luo Guang had different goals, so he felt that since Louis was also here, there was no need to perform the operation in this dangerous place. He could do it after returning home. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. But Luo Guang would not let Louis enter the vision of the lighthouse country. His GIMZ unit could not compare with the wealth of the lighthouse country. It was rare to find a talent with a dark history, and he did not want to miss it. Leon also knew this, so he did not want Louis to join the lighthouse country, so he did not mention Louis just now. He knew a lot about the GIMZ unit. At least so far, they have been trying their best to solve the biochemical crisis. He felt that it would be better for Louis to join GIMZ than to join the lighthouse country. But he could not ignore Ashley's safety because of this. It would be best to solve the parasites in the bodies of the two of them before the helicopter arrived, but he also had to have a backup plan. Leon is much kinder than Luo Guang, and it is normal for both sides to have their own ideas, so Luo Guang would not have any big opinions even if he knew Lion's ideas, but his plan would not change because of this. Just like he could let Leon make his own decision on Ada's mission, and then he would do it according to Lion's ideas, but he would not wait for Lion's answer until the last minute to implement his plan. So, are we in a hurry next? Louis said, and did not continue to talk nonsense. He quickly told Luo Guang and others about the things on the island and how to get to his laboratory. The most troublesome thing when entering the Holy Island from the dock is the Little B, which is an unmanned automatic machine gun defense device, but as long as you can go around the back of the defense device or avoid the infrared scanner, you don't have to worry about it. The rain came quickly and went quickly. Just when they were about to leave the sea cave to implement the plan, the rain stopped. This made their initial plan fail directly, but when Luo Guang used a telescope to confirm the enemy's position, he discovered something. Could this type of automatic machine gun defense device be produced by Umbrella Corporation? Luo Guang muttered when he saw the twin machine gun defense device. It wasn't like he had seen the same one elsewhere, but he had seen something similar when he was bored and looking through the Umbrella Corporation database at the Caucasus base. It wouldn't hurt to give it a try, so Luo Guang told Leon and the others his idea, then sneaked over alone to deal with the guards behind the automatic defense device, then took out the data cable and plugged it into the Umbrella specification interface of the automatic defense device, and plugged the other end into his watch. Operating the watch, Luo Guang quickly controlled the automatic defense device, and at the same time he found that the automatic defense device was connected to the internet. The Church of Light is going to be in trouble this time. Although Luo Guang's watch is small, it is the culmination of Umbrella Corporation's most advanced technology, and in this world, Umbrella Corporation's computer department technology is also at the forefront of the world. Therefore, the computing power of his watch is enough to match the defense computer on this island. First, the island's surveillance, then clear the surveillance data, and set all the automatic machine gun defense devices to indiscriminate attack mode and turn on the automatic search mode. These automatic machine guns will rotate left and right at an angle of 270 degrees, and then attack the targets found. Luo Guang also wants to set himself and others as non-attack targets, but these turrets do not have this function. There are many places on this island with access rights. Unlike Umbrella, you can swipe your watch to access, you need an access card, but he has entered the third-level access rights into his watch. As long as those access control have interfaces, he can enter them without an access card. Of course, he can also choose to open all the doors directly now, but in that case, it is unclear what monsters will be released, so Luo Guang would rather be more troublesome. The personnel of the Illuminati on this island are mainly divided into two parts. The first is the mercenaries deceived by Sadler, and the second is the cultists who follow Sadler. These people didn't have much knowledge of electronic warfare, and even if they did, they couldn't use it because of the parasites. As for the island's security captain, Krause, his computer hardware couldn't keep up, so he had no way to do anything. The automatic machine gun that was originally just stationary to block the road suddenly started to rotate, and the infrared sensor on it shone on the parasite-infected people. Without hesitation, the twin machine guns immediately spurted out flames and devoured Luo Guang's enemies. Wow! Louis exclaimed when he saw the mercenaries being beaten by the automatic machine guns and running away. Leon also saw this situation and couldn't help but smile. Using the enemy's weapons to deal with the enemy is indeed a good idea. The automatic machine gun dealt with the mercenaries like whack-a-mole, and the mercenaries' counterattacks could not penetrate the steel armor on the front of the automatic machine gun, except for those mercenaries holding light machine guns or rocket launchers. So Luo Guang didn't squat behind the automatic machine gun and watch it safely, but took out the Kar 98K rifle on his back and killed the enemies holding heavy weapons one by one. However, Luo Guang's current position is not good, so the automatic machine guns at the dock and inside the island have basically been eliminated by the enemy. On the other side, Krause thought that the automatic machine guns had problems, but then a large number of reports of attacks made him realize that the automatic machine guns were controlled by someone. This also indicates that Ramon did not stop Luo Guang and others, but he was not surprised. He had no way to stop Luo Guang from controlling the computer system on the island, and finally he could only order the mercenaries in the control center to shut down the entire system by physical means and then restart it. The reason why Luo Guang stayed behind the machine gun and maintained network connection was to prevent the enemy from restarting the system when they entered and catching him and others off guard. Krause's plan to restart the defense system ended in failure. Luo Guang had forced the system to lock and restart could not be modified. So he immediately began to think of other methods, and the simplest method was to send his men to deal with the invading enemies, but he was worried that the hackers behind Luo Guang and others launched the attack, not Luo Guang and others themselves. But no matter what, as the security captain, he had to respond. The first thing was to directly destroy all the automatic machine guns on the island, because this was the only thing Luo Guang and others could use. Then he ordered his men to shrink the defense and use the complexity of the building to block Luo Guang and his men from advancing. As long as he could delay until the Saddler leader dealt with the other rat that sneaked onto the island, he would naturally be free to deal with Luo Guang. Krauser did not conceal Luo Guang's matter because he felt embarrassed or for other reasons. He reported the matter immediately after returning to the island. Although Saddler was talking nonsense all day, he also knew the seriousness of the matter, but he was more curious about Luo Guang. If a person who had no parasites in his body but whose combat power was stronger than that of Krauser after being enhanced by the dominant parasite was given by the holy gift, how strong would he become? He was very curious. But that was also a matter for the future. First, he had to find a way to subdue that person, and the best way was to use the people around him, that is, Leon and Ashley. These two people, one was a comrade in arms, and the other was a mission target. What's more important, these two people both had holy gifts in their bodies, that is, parasites. Luo Guang and his men didn't know about Saddler's conspiracy yet. They would join together and go all the way through the dock. I'll go in first. Behind the dock was a double door gate. Luo Guang pushed it open and threw a wooden-handled grenade in without saying a word. He immediately heard the messy footsteps of the enemy. He immediately dodged in and shot at the enemies who appeared in front of him, killing all the enemies who left the bunker to avoid bullets. On the other side, Leon Mobile also rushed in with an MP-40 submachine gun. He took over the gap when Luo Guang emptied the magazine and continued to suppress the enemy. He quickly dealt with the enemy who was ambushing behind the door. Luo Guang walked to the place where the wooden-handled grenade was and picked it up again. He could use it to explore the way later. Ha, this trick actually works. After confirming safety, Louis escorted Ashley in. This wooden-handled grenade was a dud. Luo Guang poured out all the gunpowder inside. They had almost used up all the wooden-handled grenades to deal with Ramon before. The one Luo Guang just threw out was the last one they had. Because they found round fragmentation grenades from the mercenaries at the dock, this wooden-handled grenade with a low charge was out of the question. Anyway, there was only one left, so Luo Guang thought of making a dud to explore the way, and then recycle it. In the next area, for some reason, we may face a very difficult enemy named Regenerator. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 282. The Regenerator is a biochemical monster developed by a researcher of the Church of Light. The initial research project was just to understand the situation of multiple parasites parasitizing the same host. Under normal circumstances, the Plaka parasite rarely robs other hosts of the same kind. But this researcher combined the Plaka parasite with the leech gene, overcame the problem of Plaka parasite independence, and successfully implanted multiple Plaka parasites in the human body. After the experimental subject was implanted with multiple Plaka parasites, many changes occurred. First, all the hair fell out, the ears disappeared, the nose collapsed, the eyes emitted red light, and all the surface features of the body disappeared. The gender of the experimental subject could not be identified, and only the basic human appearance was retained. The skin is grayish-white and extremely smooth and elastic. Like a rubber man, it can freely extend and retract its arms to capture distant enemies and then send them into its mouth, but its internal organs have degenerated, and it has lost its internal organs and brain, and lost its advantage of intelligence, becoming a monster that only devours surrounding creatures. Now its body is a huge digestive bag. The swallowed enemies will be gradually digested and absorbed alive in the Regenerator's body, but before being digested, these poor people have already died of suffocation. In addition to the above information, Lewis also said the biggest feature of the Regenerator, which is that it can regenerate quickly as its name suggests. As long as the parasites in the body are not completely eliminated, the Regenerator can quickly regenerate and repair the damaged tissue structure in the body. Lewis continued with a serious face, "I warned that stupid researcher about the danger of the Regenerator at that time, but he didn't listen." Finally, during a power outage, the Regenerator in the cryogenic freezer woke up due to the increase in indoor temperature, and finally went crazy and broke through the freezer. How was it solved in the end? After repairing the power system, the Regenerator was led back and frozen again. Lewis paused and said, "But that accident caused 7 deaths and 19 injuries, which was a big blow to the Illuminati research team. Are the parasites in the body fixed in place?" "Not fixed. So we need the assistance of the biological sensor mirror, but we don't know if that thing is still in the laboratory of that unlucky guy." Lewis and his team stood and did not move forward, but discussed the matter of the Regenerator. This is because they did not encounter enemies like mercenaries here, so they discussed all the way. As a result, they found weapons that had been dropped and loaded and opened on the ground. Luo Guang guessed that they had encountered Regenerators, so he stopped and asked for information about the Regenerators first. Luo Guang and his team did not pick up these weapons because they had no spare magazines. It would be better to wait until they reached the arsenal that Lewis mentioned and upgrade and replace their weapons directly. The bodies of those Regenerators are very soft. You must be careful of places like the ceiling vents. Don't talk about people during the day, don't talk about monsters at night. As soon as Lewis finished speaking, they heard a sound from the ceiling. "You are a crow's mouth." Luo Guang raised the 98K rifle in his hand helplessly and aimed. These Regenerators have little defense against bullets, but they are like rubber products. If you don't use high-penetration weapons, it is not easy to shoot through the parasites in their bodies. A Regenerator knocked open the fence of the vent and fell down. "There are also here." There was also a sound from the ceiling on the other side of the corridor. A white meatball fell to the ground and then slowly stood up. "There are too many Regenerators," Leon said, aiming at the enemy on the other side. They were stuck in the middle. "Break their legs first," Lewis gave a suggestion. But Luo Guang did not take Lewis's advice. He fired 5 rifle bullets without hesitation and directly solved the regenerator in front of him. What the Lewis looked at Luo Guang in surprise. The biological sensor mirror that Lewis mentioned before is an instrument that is sensitive to organisms and can convert their concentration into electrical signals for detection. In simple terms, it can be used to find the location of parasites in the enemy's body. But Luo Guang did not rely on transforming his eyes into biological sensor mirrors or heat-sensing mirrors. As for how to confirm the location of parasites in the regenerator, Luo Guang has 2 methods. One is to rely on Xiaobai, who has eaten the parasites, which can sense the location of the parasites. His dud grenade was just a show for Leon and the others. To really confirm whether there are mercenaries and other enemies behind the door, he relies on Xiaobai, who is now a pendant beside Ashley, to report the location. However, if he only relied on Xiaobai's reporting, it would be a bit of luck to accurately hit the parasite in the regenerator's body. A slight mistake would lead to a huge difference. If he hit it wrong, he would not be able to solve the parasite. So he relied on the second method, which was to control the electric energy and shoot invisible electromagnetic waves at the regenerator, and then confirm the location of the parasite based on the feedback of the electromagnetic waves penetrating the regenerator's body. The situation was a bit like using X-rays to do a physical examination of the regenerator. Leon and Lewis used submachine guns to break the legs of the regenerator, so that it could not continue to twist its body and rush over like a weird species, but this did not mean that they could relax. Even if the regenerator broke its legs, it could use the elasticity of its body to bounce up and pounce on the enemy. Squat down. Luo Guang quickly loaded the 98K rifle with bullets and turned around to shout. The 3 believed Luo Guang's words without hesitation and squatted immediately. After the regenerator was knocked down, several parasites in his body overlapped together. Luo Guang shot through 2 parasites with 1 shot, and quickly solved the other regenerator. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. Luo Guang, how do you know where those parasites are? Lewis asked in surprise. Luo Guang did not explain too much, and replied, the mysterious power of the East. Hearing Luo Guang's words, Leon and the others also understood that this matter needed to be kept secret, but they were a little numb. Anyway, they knew that Luo Guang was one of them and was not a bad guy. Except for Ashley, who here doesn't have some secrets. For example, Leon has cleared clues for the Lighthouse Country to cooperate with Umbrella Company, and for example, what kind of disaster did Lewis's stuff developed by Umbrella Company cause? So they all tacitly did not ask further, and Ashley naturally did not ask when she saw this situation. However, although he did not ask further, Lewis thought of one thing when he looked at Luo Guang, that is, Umbrella's Wesker plan. Lewis and his research team were called the European 6 Research Dream Team within Umbrella, which means that even within Umbrella, which has many talents, Lewis is a top-ranked genius. So although he did not have the opportunity to participate in the Wesker project, he roughly knew the content of the Wesker project, in addition to the real purpose of the project, so he knew the existence of Albert Wesker. He had heard Luo Guang tell Ada before that he and Wesker were friends of life and death, and now he couldn't help but suspect that this was true, and not a lie to Ada. Moreover, Luo Guang also said that he used to be an intelligence officer of Umbrella, and Wesker had also held this position, so Lewis made a guess in his heart that Luo Guang was very likely to be a person related to the Wesker project, or even one of the Weskers, and his current name was just a pseudonym. In this way, Luo Guang's combat power that far exceeded that of ordinary people could be explained. As a precious Wesker child today, it naturally needs to be kept secret. Of course, Lewis thought so much just out of his thirst for knowledge and curiosity, and he did not intend to expose Luo Guang. Moreover, he knew that Luo Guang could actually keep it hidden, just like when they first met. But now Luo Guang showed his power far beyond ordinary people in order to get timely treatment for Leon and others. In this case, he admired Luo Guang's choice more. Under Luo Guang's leadership, 5 or 6 regenerators and a special regenerator with steel thorns in his body were solved. Overall, it was not too dangerous. After the parasites in the special regenerator were all solved, the steel needle flew out when the body expanded and exploded like other ordinary regenerators. Everyone was naturally prepared, but one of the steel needles hit the wall and rebounded and hit Louis' shoulder hiding behind the bunker. In Louis's funny words, Leon personally pulled out the steel needle, but before he had time to spray the wound with first aid spray, the wound healed. This is probably because the effect of the oral medicine I took before has not worn off. Luo Guang took a look and said that this situation was attributed to the medicine Kara gave him. It is indeed possible. I feel very healthy and not tired, Louis affirmed Luo Guang's explanation. Since Louis was fine, everyone continued to set off. After passing the autopsy room and the freezer, under Louis's leadership, Luo Guang used his watch to remove the authority and successfully opened the door of the armory. Leon watched Luo Guang operate, thinking that he would also ask his own organization to make a suggestion after returning, and get such a useful tool, instead of letting himself go out to perform tasks with a tablet-sized thing that only has communication function. Most of the weapons in the armory were taken away by the mercenaries, but the remaining ones were enough to arm Luo Guang and his friends. As always, Luo Guang likes to use shotguns as his main weapon, so he immediately liked the M3S90 shotgun on the gun rack. It belongs to the same company as the M4S90 semi-automatic shotgun that Luo Guang used to use, but the M4S90 semi-automatic shotgun uses the gas piston principle instead of the M3's inertial recoil system. However, Luo Guang would not use those low recoil ammunition, so the disadvantage that the inertial recoil system may not have enough ability to complete the automatic cycle when firing low-pressure bullets can be basically ignored by him, and there are only a lot of ordinary 12G shotguns for him to use, no single-headed bullets. Then Luo Guang put down the 98K rifle in his hand and replaced it with an M4 rifle. This M4 rifle is equipped with a CQBR upper receiver, a RIS handguard produced by KC and a vertical pistol grip. Unfortunately, there is no optical sight, which slightly reduces the appearance of the weapon. On the other side, Leon's first choice is an MP5A5 submachine gun. The Springfield rifle on his back has officially retired and replaced by the SL8-1 sports rifle. There is nothing much to say about the well-known MP5A5 submachine gun. It uses a retractable stock, removes the front sight and rear sight, and adds a Picatinny rail with a red dot sight on it. The SL8-1 sports rifle was modified by HK based on the G36 assault rifle. Although it has the word sports in its name, its lethality is no different from the G36 assault rifle. The reason why this gun was used instead of the Springfield rifle was that the Springfield rifle had no rails, while the SL8-1 rifle was equipped with a 1x-3x adjustable magnification scope, and its 10-round magazine and semi-automatic shooting method were also better than the Springfield rifle. Leon also specifically confirmed at the shooting range next to the arsenal that this gun could use 5.56mm NATO bullets, rather than only the .233 Remington civilian bullets with a relatively low charge. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. The reason why Luo Guang and his team replaced the old-fashioned rifles with strong penetration was mainly because they considered that the damage of these two rifles was excessive most of the time. But the Springfield rifle was retired, and Luo Guang did not withdraw from the battlefield after replacing his 98K rifle, but directly asked Ashley to help them carry the gun. There was no two-dimensional storage box here, so Ashley had to be their backpack. Ashley did not refuse to carry a gun, and she was very happy to help everyone. Louis was not behind Luo Guang and the others. He immediately picked a Thompson submachine gun that could use a drum magazine. In his opinion, he was mainly a supporting role, so a submachine gun that could quickly stop a large number of enemies' actions was very suitable for him. Everyone, this is our last supply point, so it's best to bring all your luggage, Louis said with a smile. Unfortunately, before going to the island, he threw away the spear in his hand, otherwise he would definitely perform another Don Quixote to cheer him up. Since Lewis said so, everyone also took as many bullets as possible without affecting the action. In fact, the Sadler family has been lurking on this isolated island not far from the Salazar family's territory for a long time. In the early days, in order to prevent the Salazar family from discovering them and causing the enemy to come and besiege them, they have been repairing the fortifications on the mountain for many years, relying on the entire mountain to build a fortress that can be trapped for a long time and an escape passage. So in addition to Lewis's research institute, the temple, and the residence of the Sadler leader, there are also storage warehouses and arsenals for storing food and drinking water on the mountain. However, because that place is very close to Sadler's residence, Lewis usually doesn't dare to wander around there. Therefore, he thought that this was the only place with an arsenal, and there would be no place to resupply, or he could only pick up weapons and ammunition from the mercenaries. When leaving, Luo Guang looked back at the arsenal with a little regret. He didn't find any weapons such as RPG-7 rocket launchers here. However, he saw that some mercenaries were holding or carrying RPG rocket launchers, so Luo Guang planned to find an opportunity to see if he could grab a few rocket launchers to deal with the big boss. As for the person responsible for carrying the rocket launcher, he had also thought about it, so he let Lewis do the number 2 backpack. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 283. The purpose of the automatic machine gun turrets was to kill humans, and the fragile human body made the programmers set the attack area of these automatic machine guns to the human chest. Therefore, the torso is the largest part of the human body, so relying on these 12.7 x 108 mm bullets can easily tear the human body apart, and it is easy to harvest the enemy without aiming at the head. And it happened that this area was where the parasites were parasitic, so those automatic machine gun turrets successfully eliminated more than half of the mercenaries. Therefore, Luo Guang and others were observing the surroundings of the huge freight elevator and found that the mercenary guards there looked very strict, but the positions of these enemies were much looser. However, there was an area in front of the huge freight elevator. Except for the bunkers for the mercenaries, there was no other bunker. If they launched an attack rashly, they would only become live targets of the enemy. It seemed that Krauser had made temporary adjustments, but Luo Guang did not see Krauser in the front area. Several people quickly discussed the battle plan. After all, the times have changed. With both sides armed, Luo Guang and his men didn't have any special plans. They could only hide in a place with a bunker about 100 meters away and shoot at the enemy, and then set off again after all the enemies were eliminated. In a gunfight, the first mover has a huge advantage, so Clausa arranged people at the commanding heights of the mercenary area, just to allow his men to find Luo Guang and his men first. But because of limited time, Clausa was unable to clear all the bunkers on the road between Luo Guang and his men leaving the freezer and the giant freight elevator, so Luo Guang and his men now stopped by a concrete wall, and then secretly observed the enemy's situation through the broken hole in the wall without being discovered by the enemy first. This broken hole was smashed by Clausa himself to vent his anger. Leon was responsible for finding a suitable high point around, and then climbed up to cover Luo Guang with the SL8-1 sports rifle, while Lewis, Ashley, and Xiaobai were hiding behind a large container front crane, and Luo Guang was responsible for attracting the enemy's attention and annihilating the enemy's living forces at the same time. However, to attract the enemy's attention does not mean that Luo Guang directly rushed to the open area to kill the enemy. He also relied on the containers and other shelters on his side to attack. Everything went according to plan. Luo Guang lurked to a suitable position to prevent himself from being too close to Leon so that the enemy could easily find Leon's position. It would be best if Luo Guang could not see the fire of Leon's shooting when he was in the center of the enemy's sight. But after he came to this open place, he always felt uncomfortable because he was being stared at. This was because his passive ability of danger perception was always in the activated state. This meant that someone had already discovered him and others, but did not attack. In this regard, Luo Guang had already had a candidate in mind. Who else could it be except Krause? So even if he felt uncomfortable, he did not turn off this passive ability. Just as Luo Guang guessed, this was the trap that Krause had specially prepared for him. There are not many mercenaries here and they seem to be very scattered. In fact, many mercenaries are ambushing behind those bunkers, holding light machine guns, rocket launchers, and other weapons, waiting for Luo Guang to come. Krause has summoned all the mercenaries to this area this time. Yes, Krause's primary target is Luo Guang, not Leon and his men. Because he knows that Luo Guang likes to fight alone. Whether it is the ancient ruins of the Amazon jungle or the underground fortress in Berlin, Luo Guang chooses to abandon them and complete the task by himself. So the first person to step into this trap will only be Luo Guang, and before the threat is removed, there will only be Luo Guang alone, so there is no need to worry about accidentally hurting Ashley, who Sadler needs. Luo Guang has also considered that the trap he prepared will be discovered by Luo Guang, so those who hold heavy machine guns and rocket launchers will appear in the second batch, and the first batch of ambushes will only hold some assault rifles or light machine guns. Luo Guang will be superstitious about his own strength, and he should not retreat easily when facing light machine guns. At that time, it will be the opportunity for the ambush with heavy firepower to appear, making it impossible for him to escape. And Krauser himself only needed to stand on the top of the giant freight elevator and enjoy the battle on the mountain. He did not choose to fight below, in fact, he was not ready to win. Krauser ran away without saying a word after Luo Guang asked a question. It seemed that Luo Guang's question successfully influenced his thoughts, but the truth was that he used this question to find a way out for himself and did not want to lose face in front of Leon. He and Luo Guang fought for only a few rounds, and now he has lost the idea of fighting Luo Guang alone. The main reason was that the kick was right, and he could feel that Luo Guang did not use much force to kick out. If Luo Guang kicked with all his strength, he would not only have broken his cervical vertebrae, but also injured his skull and brain, but his whole head would be kicked away by Luo Guang. Bravery does not mean recklessness, so he chose to rely on his combat skills that he had honed to perfection over the years to deal with Luo Guang. The reason why Luo Guang held back was not because he had any pity for Krauser, but just to see what surprises the other party could give him. After all, many battles now could not improve his combat level. Krauser didn't wait for Luo Guang to launch the attack first. He immediately reported Luo Guang's hiding place to his subordinates and asked the only mercenary holding the RPG-7 rocket launcher to blow Luo Guang out. Luo Guang, RPG. Because Luo Guang and the others were already together, the walkie-talkie in Louis' hand was also returned to Luo Guang's hands, so Leon, who had just reached the high point, immediately told Luo Guang about the enemy's situation through the walkie-talkie. Without thinking too much, Luo Guang knew that he had been discovered and immediately ran away. Luo Guang was immediately attacked by a storm of enemy bullets after leaving the bunker. However, the mercenaries did not have a clear understanding of Luo Guang's speed, so they did not calculate the timing of their shots well, and all the bullets they fired passed behind Luo Guang. Luo Guang did not take advantage of this opportunity to fight back. Those enemies fired at almost the same time, even if they had different types of weapons. Sooner or later there would be a shooting vacuum, and it would be safer for him to wait for that time to counterattack. Leon didn't shoot. It wasn't that he didn't know how to adapt and had to wait for Luo Guang to fire the first shot, but they had already agreed. Like Clausa, Luo Guang also considered the situation of being discovered by the enemy first, so he had a plan for the current situation. As long as he was not in a situation without cover, Leon would act according to the established plan. Clausa saw Lion's figure, but his target was all on Luo Guang. If he couldn't solve Luo Guang, then there was no point in taking Leon. Ta ta ta. Luo Guang's 3 precise shots directly killed a mercenary. Mozambique's shooting method was still applicable in this situation. Those mercenaries, like the villagers, are proficient in using guns, but they have forgotten most of the tactics and combat actions in their minds. The resilience of the parasites also makes them rarely find bunkers. They are basically Krause. Give them orders and they will go to the bunker for cover. From this point of view, Krause is playing a tactical game, while Luo Guang is playing a first-person shooting game. After getting the signal from Luo Guang to fire, Leon followed closely. The first targets were the enemies at the commanding heights. Those enemies were the greatest threat to himself or Luo Guang. With a bang, Leon fired a shot at the enemy in the watchtower, but because the mercenary had a bunker of steel plates and sandbags in front of him, Leon could only choose to attack his head. Therefore, it doesn't matter the banelings. Those baneling mercenaries don't know how to aim their guns. They will only hold the trigger to fire all the bullets or just throw the gun aside. And just where Leon couldn't see it, one of the ambush soldiers squatting behind the bunker in the watchtower was hit directly in the chest by a baneling mercenary. This incident was just an episode in this battle. Leon had already moved the scope and the ambush was behind the bunker, so no one noticed this problem. After firing 3 consecutive shots, Luo Guang retreated behind the bunker and pressed the call button on the walkie-talkie. "Leon, take care of the rocket launcher first." Leon didn't answer. He pressed the call button directly and told Luo Guang through a short noise that he had received it. This was also because the gun in his hand was not bolt action, so he could free his hand to respond. The bazooka mercenary replaced the warhead with a new one, which was the same as the previous one. It was an armor-piercing projectile. The iron sheet of the container and the goods inside could not stop it. So Luo Guang's first reaction when he heard the rocket launcher was to leave the bunker, instead of betting that the enemy's attack would not hurt him behind the bunker. But just when the mercenary picked up the rocket launcher, Leon shot the enemy through the chest. However, the enemy still successfully pulled the trigger of the rocket launcher, but the crosshair was no longer aimed at Luo Guang's position, but at a bunker below and in front. It directly hit the mercenaries who stood up behind the bunker and the hiding ambush soldiers. Luo Guang took advantage of this opportunity, immediately changed his position, moved and fired at the same time, and eliminated several more enemies, and then slid behind another orange container. Krause looked at the situation below and saw his mercenaries being harvested one by Luo Guang. There was no change on his face. He was just thinking about how Luo Guang would act after he finished dealing with the enemies on the surface. In his opinion, even if all the mercenaries were killed, as long as Luo Guang could be eliminated, it would be a profit. As for the task Sadler gave him to capture Luo Guang, he simply ignored it. After Sadler heard Krause's report, his first reaction was that there was a great host for the parasite. The Plaka parasite gave him the feeling of controlling all things, which made him arrogant. Like Spencer, he felt that he could become a god, so Sadler only had this feeling when facing the unusual enemy Luo Guang. Unrealistic ideas. Luo Guang didn't have such second-rate ideas when integrating so many viruses. Luo Guang, there is something wrong with the bunker that was blown up by the rocket launcher. There was only one person there, but 3 bodies were blown out. After hearing Leon's words, Luo Guang understood where his uneasiness came from. It was because there was an ambush, and it wasn't just Klause. After taking care of the enemy, I will go over to confirm the situation. Don't be in a hurry to join me, Luo Guang replied. No need to think about it, this is Krause's plan. In order to lure himself into the trap, Luo Guang thought while replacing a new magazine for the assault rifle in his hand. The firepower of the mercenaries has been reduced a lot. They have already eliminated more than a dozen mercenaries. The remaining mercenaries are just resisting. Before, they thought that the enemy was dying, but now it seems that they are inviting you to enter the urn. However, Luo Guang had no intention of escaping because Leon and Ashley couldn't hold him back. There may be more than just a few ambushes. If I run into any trouble later, you don't have to cover me. Protect Ashley. Luo Guang first gave Leon a shot of caution, don't look too much. It's not good for your health. I understand. Leon knew what Luo Guang meant. After dealing with the enemy, Luo Guang pretended not to know. He first held his gun and slowly checked the situation, and then relied on the road to gradually move towards the firepower concentration area set by Krause. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. Took the bait. Krause was still worried that Luo Guang would be cautious after discovering the clues of the bombed bunker and would not dare to step into the trap easily, but now it seems that Luo Guang is indeed as arrogant as he thought, and has always looked down on himself. This is Krause's one-sided statement, because when he challenged Luo Guang and during the challenge, Luo Guang's face did not change at all, and he seemed to find it boring. But this was just Luo Guang's daily state, because at that time Luo Guang was conducting antibiochemical training at the Red Claws base, which was a work state, and who would go to work with a smile. In fact, Luo Guang still liked the fighting sparring with Krause, and he could learn a lot of knowledge. Although they were both from special forces, Luo Guang was a latecomer after all, and what he lacked most was practical experience, which happened to be what Krause lacked the least. Krause gave orders to the first wave of ambushes, no, to all the ambushes, and asked them to attack Luo Guang together. Because Luo Guang was not as arrogant as he said, he walked out leisurely after confirming that the enemy was completely wiped out. Just before stepping into the ambush circle, Luo Guang rushed out quickly, with the goal of passing through the open area as soon as possible. As long as he reached the bunkers of those mercenaries, he could use the bunkers to clear the enemy's ambush. It was very open here, so Luo Guang could easily determine the location of the enemy's ambush. There were more mercenaries than before, and those enemies with long guns and short guns launched a fierce attack on Luo Guang. Luo Guang, who was aiming and running at the same time, was faster than the enemy's shooting speed, and directly accelerated to the side to avoid the enemy's firepower network. At the same time, his upper body remained stable, which could ensure the accuracy of his shooting, and he took the lead in knocking down those mercenaries holding heavy rocket launchers with a burst of fire. But unfortunately, those mercenaries holding rocket launchers did not pull the trigger like the previous one, and failed to let the enemy suffer. Krause picked up a quadruple rocket launcher from his side and locked his eyes on Luo Guang. Luo Guang felt a chill on his back almost at the same time, and accurately felt the killing intent from Krause. Other parasite mercenaries would not have killing intent towards Luo Guang. They were just puppets under the dominant parasite host, so when the fight started, he did not react in advance before Leon reminded him of the RPG attack. Krause also saw Luo Guang looking up at his position, and his heart tightened, but his strong psychological quality still allowed him to hold the weapon steadily and pull the trigger. All 4 rockets were fired, attacking the running Luo Guang in a cross-shaped attack. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 284. 3-stage acceleration. This is Luo Guang's response to Krause's 4 rockets. Even though this is Luo Guang's 3rd stage of acceleration, he can't use electricity to stimulate his body's potential, because the enemy didn't push Luo Guang to his limit before. And this time, Luo Guang's speed directly broke through the limit of all enemies' dynamic vision, away from the killing range of rockets, and entered the bunker area of those mercenaries in one breath, and even took the time to change a new magazine for the M4 assault rifle in his hand. Krause threw away the empty M202A1 flash quad rocket launcher in his hand and picked up the sniper rifle on the other side. The gun was developed by Yingguo Precision International Company and uses 0.338-inch Lapu Magnum bullets. It can maintain sufficient killing power at more than 1,300 meters, which is just right for Krause, who is almost halfway up the mountain, to attack the foot of the mountain. Danger perception once again warned Luo Guang. The stronger the enemy, the easier it is for Luo Guang to sense the killing intent. If there were no parasites in Krause's body, he might not be able to detect the killing intent of the enemy so far away. Luo Guang rolled to the side to avoid the bullets shot by Krause. This time, he did not even look at Krause's position before avoiding. Leon saw the fire on the top of the freight elevator, took out the telescope, and saw Krause's figure. "Krause, why did you join the Church of Light?" Leon muttered to himself and informed Luo Guang about it. Luo Guang had no time to reply to Leon. He relied on the bunker and raised his gun to attack the enemies who surrounded him. Because he had a faster reaction speed than the enemy, he could always shoot and kill the enemy before the enemy aimed at him. He had come to the bunker area, and the enemies around him were also eliminated, and the enemies a little further away were rushing over, intending to eliminate Luo Guang. Shrinking back, Luo Guang took out a grenade, pinched it for 2 seconds and threw it into the air. He wanted to give the enemy an air burst, and then take this opportunity to change the magazine. An enemy who came from the side suddenly showed up, but was shot through the chest by a bullet. Leon did not move his eyes away to protect Ashley and Louis, but changed to a new high ground and continued to cover Luo Guang. Luo Guang did not say much about this, but just smiled slightly. Usually he cooperated with others, but he did not expect that Leon was as good at cooperating with various people as himself. After changing the bullets, he did not stick his head out to continue attacking. He guessed that Krauser was waiting for him to stick his head out. So he went to the other side, moved the cover and shot the enemies coming from the other side. He also picked up the AK-74 assault rifle dropped by one of the enemies, and then pulled the trigger at the 2 enemies that appeared above the container, with the purpose of restricting the enemies on that side. Almost with his hands, he raised the M4 assault rifle in his right hand and pulled the trigger at the enemy that appeared on the other side. Although it was only a one-handed operation, the recoil of the M4 rifle was negligible for Luo Guang, and his sights were also focused on that side, so he easily solved the enemies on that side. Krauser judged the position behind Luo Guang's bunker through the gun barrel that Luo Guang extended, and took this opportunity to shoot again, but Luo Guang easily moved sideways and dodged the sniper bullet that penetrated the bunker again. His accurate shooting made Luo Guang easily avoid the attack. Damn it, why, Krauser, who was obsessed with power, felt that he was looked down upon by Luo Guang again. The shooting skills that he trusted for many years could not deal with Luo Guang, which made him angry why he did not move the heavy machine gun in the warehouse and directly kill Luo Guang with the rain of bullets that could not be avoided. He fired a few more shots, but Luo Guang seemed to have predicted the future and always moved his position when he pulled the trigger, and his ambushed mercenaries were even more threatening to Luo Guang. Krauser himself was not fast, so he did not consider that the time from when he gave the order to the ambush to when the ambush stood up and aimed at Luo Guang was enough for Luo Guang to quickly pass through most of the open area, and he could also speed up several times, so that all the bullets of himself and others were empty. The fatal loophole of missing Luo Guang's speed limit was enough to make Krauser's trap fail, and in the end, Luo Guang could only clear all his mercenaries one by one. Krauser saw that the matter was done and he could not save the failure of this ambush, so he turned and left. He did not give up, but wanted to go back to accept the evolution that Sadler had mentioned to him before. He did not want to give up his current human appearance, but decided not to be a human. Only in this way could he break through the limit of human beings. Next time he would meet Luo Guang in a brand new form and fight with him. Luo Guang raised his head and looked at the place where Krauser stood before. At this time, he could no longer feel the uneasiness and murderous aura. It seemed that the other party had no other backup, but he did not call Leon and others to come over. Instead, he quickly checked the situation in this area and first finished off the enemies who needed to be shot. After confirming that it was really safe, he pressed the call button of the giant freight elevator, and then called Leon to lead the team to meet up while waiting for the freight elevator to come down. "Luo Guang, are you okay? Are you injured?" Ashley, who had just been secretly observing the battle, asked immediately. The sound of bullets whizzing and grenades exploding scared her. When she was kidnapped before, bullets were also flying everywhere. The only difference was that there were not so many explosions. Luo Guang smiled and shook his head. "It's okay. But you shouldn't have stuck your head out to sea. What if you were hit by a stray bullet?" This chapter is not finished yet. Please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. "Sorry, I won't dare next time," Ashley stuck out her tongue and said coquettishly. Luo Guang smiled back, then turned to Leon and Louis and said, "The situation just now was an ambush arranged by Clausa. We may have to encounter these again in the future. We have to move forward more cautiously. It was luck that we found the enemy this time." "Ambush?" Leon nodded. If Luo Guang hadn't been there, it would have been fanciful for him to deal with so many enemies without getting hurt, and they would have spent more time breaking through here than they did now. Although it is possible, it is also possible that those mercenaries are gone. In my impression, there were at least 1/3 of the mercenaries there just now. After Louis finished speaking, he added, "But it's better to be cautious." "Wrong." Luo Guang said speechlessly, "That's right, but it's better not to say it. This is not a game. We only have one life, so we have to be more cautious. So in order to punish you for the nonsense you said, it's up to you, Louis, to put these RPG-7 rocket launchers on my back." Louis looked at the rocket launcher at Luo Guang's feet and bent down with a look of helplessness. He had the lightest burden now, so he could only carry an RPG-7 rocket launcher on his left and right. "You let a precious genius. Researchers are wasting their resources by doing this. It's good to exercise more," Luo Guang replied. After bickering, they boarded the elevator and came to the mountain area. All the weapons Krause had used before were destroyed, and Luo Guang could not catch them. "This seems a bit far away." Originally, Ashley thought that it would be enough to reach the mountain. Unexpectedly, it was similar to Salazar's castle, and there was a fortress-like place in the distance. "It's almost there. It's only been about an hour since we landed on the island. If we hadn't obtained the third-level permission in advance, we would have had to spend more than half an hour in the freezer." Louis looked relatively optimistic. But Ashley replied, "But we only have half an hour left." Everyone did not stop and soon arrived at the amber warehouse, which contained parasite-laden amber deposits dug out from under Salazar Castle. The reason why this warehouse is so close to the freight elevator is to facilitate transportation. After researchers extract live parasites later, the demand for parasites will be reduced, and there will be no need to knock out a few pieces of amber for research all day long. After many screenings, the parasites in these ambers are now basically no longer reusable. Luo Guang and others walked in, and then just passed through the gate at the other end, which was the way to the mountain fortress. After passing the fortress, they were not far from Louis' research room and the temple. But before that, they actually met Master Sadler, the mastermind behind this biological crisis, in this place. After Krause left the ambush site, he went to find Sadler. Although Sadler failed to catch the rat who tried to steal the Illuminati's research information, he did not let Ada succeed. Ada did not see the researchers in the research institute, but instead found a large amount of tested amber. So she used the institute's computer to search for the special amber she wanted. It turned out that the one Luo Guang had now was the only one. This was the only useful information she got. But the thief did not escape, so Ada planned to pack up and take away all the Plaka parasite research materials, but was caught by Sadler, who went to confirm the researcher's condition. After Sadler finished dealing with the little mouse, he happened to meet Clausa, who came to the door and asked the leader to grant him evolution. This made Sadler a little surprised why Krause, who was originally hesitant to accept evolution, suddenly made up his mind. After asking about the situation in detail, he performed an evolution ceremony for Clausa, and then planned to meet Luo Guang in person for a while, and at the same time get Ashley first. The two sides met each other in this huge warehouse, and the two sides were at war with each other. Luo Guang did not criticize the other side, but directly raised his M3S90 semi-automatic shotgun and hit him. Sadler was followed by 8 cultists dressed in white, wearing white hoods and ropes tied around their necks. At the moment Luo Guang fired, one of the cultists jumped directly in front of Sadler and blocked the shot for him, sacrificing the parasite in his body without hesitation. Stupid, ignorant lamb. Obey the orders of your holy lord. Ignoring Luo Guang's attack, Master Sadler raised his hand and aimed at Leon and Ashley behind Luo Guang, preparing to use his control technique. But just when the parasite signal transmitted by Sadler was about to touch Leon and the others, a burst of similar signals appeared, directly confusing Sadler's signal. Get out of here. Immediately afterwards, a signal like a mental attack wave surged into Sadler's brain, forcing him to clean up the garbage signals that poured into his mind with all his strength. At the same time, his body unconsciously took a step back. The cultists on both sides immediately stood in front of him, blocking Luo Guang's next attack for the leader. How is that possible? Luo Guang's voice actually appeared in his brain. This should be the power of the parasite, but Sadler did not sense the existence of the parasite in the other person. Even if they are dominant parasites, both parties can sense each other. The power of God was stolen, which made Sadler angry. At the same time, a spell came out of his mouth, and the remaining 5 cultists immediately exploded. One of the cultists' body changed directly and turned into a flesh wall, blocking all the bullets from Luo Guang and his team. Sadler continued to try to control Ashley and Leon, but they were stopped by Luo Guang. In fact, it was not difficult. He just needed to disrupt the enemy's signal into information that the parasites in Leon and his team could not recognize. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. Although the system said that more information needs to be collected to give the most accurate answer, it is obviously a successful copy. Who are you? Why can you use Plaka's power? Sadler had a little panic on his face, and he had already retreated in his heart. He kept backing away from the door and shouted at the same time. A flesh wall alone could not stop Luo Guang. But the parasites in the bodies of the other 4 white-robed cultists were of another type. After the explosion, 4 long legs appeared, just like a long-legged spider, lifting the whole body up. Then the arms of the white-robed cultists turned into tentacles and attacked Luo Guang and his group. At the same time, Luo Guang had to protect Leon and Ashley to prevent them from being controlled, so he did not chase them. I am the messenger sent to the mortal world by the God of the Church of Light, in order to eliminate you, the blasphemer who tried to seize the power of God. Luo Guang dodged the tentacle attack and shot the parasite exposed by one of the cultists with one shot, while shouting his orthodoxy to the retreating Sadler. Damn it, you heretic! Sadler naturally would not believe Luo Guang's nonsense, and cursed angrily, then hurried away and thought about how to solve the problem of Luo Guang interrupting his control. Otherwise, his plan from beginning to end was just a joke, and he made wedding clothes for Luo Guang in minutes, allowing him to seize the fruits of his victory in controlling the world. He left, Louis couldn't believe it, and then looked at Luo Guang with curiosity. Is what he said true? He really couldn't help it, the mystery of Luo Guang crawled on him like an ant. What do you think? Luo Guang rolled his eyes at him and said, I don't have any parasites in my body. He just tried to control Leon and others and failed, so he found an excuse. After a pause, he said, didn't you say before that your inhibitor can put parasites into hibernation, so he can't control them? He just found an excuse to his believers. You know that these religious people are like this. After hearing this, Louis nodded. He was just scared by Sadler's words and forgot that his parasite inhibitor had that effect. But the situation just now was too dangerous. If he was really controlled, the consequences would be disastrous. Lewis, there is another inhibitor, right? Leon said in fear. Ashley seemed to see what Leon was thinking, and immediately said, Leon, let's leave this inhibitory drug to you. With you here, even if I am controlled, you can save me. No, the parasites in your body developed earlier than mine, so you have to continue to suppress them, otherwise you will be more uncomfortable when you develop to the middle stage. But, hey, don't worry, both of you. This place is very close to my laboratory. When the time comes, whoever has an attack will be the first to take care of it. Lewis made a round. The most important thing now is to continue to set off and hurry up. Luo Guang nodded in agreement. Lewis rarely speaks human words, let's continue to set off. Luo Guang, you will lose me if you do this, Lewis said dissatisfiedly. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 285. Luo Guang and his team came to a relatively flat open area, where there were many camouflage tents. They found a lot of information in the largest tent, including Ashley's kidnapping plan, a file about Krauser's last mission, and a photo of Leon. I think this should be where the mercenaries and Krauser live. Hey, Leon, is this a photo of you when you were young? Ashley took Leon's photo and compared it with Leon's current appearance. That photo was taken after Leon left Raccoon City. He was still wearing the RPD bulletproof vest. It was taken when he joined the Special Operations Command. I'm still young now, Leon smiled bitterly. What happened over the years made him look more mature and vicissitudes. He can go to the Devil May Cry studio next door to play Dante with a little makeup. Luo Guang picked up the file and started reading it. The content of this file is what Krauser experienced. An isolated combat unit was abandoned there. Everyone checked it together and soon saw a paragraph. It was a hypothesis written by a witness of this mission, a reporter from the Lighthouse country. My father would never do such a thing, Ashley immediately retorted when she saw that the file said that the president of the Lighthouse country personally ordered to give up rescuing Krauser and his team. Everyone did not speak out to agree with Ashley just because they knew her. They knew something about the dark side of the world and could not determine that the president was not involved in this matter, so they could only respond in silence. Don't you believe it? Ashley felt very uncomfortable in her heart. Her father, who had always been committed to protecting the country, would not do such a shameful thing, but why did everyone not believe her? As if to beg for approval, she grabbed the corner of Luo Guang's clothes with her hand, raised her head slightly, and looked at Luo Guang with trepidation. Luo Guang comforted Ashley, Ashley, this is just a conspiracy theory. If you care about it, you will lose. He was about to say something when he heard Leon, who was turning to the next page, say in confusion, wait a minute, Operation Javier, isn't that my graduation mission? Ashley also heard Leon's words and turned to look over. Lewis was surprised and said, what mission is this? And haven't you two met in the mission? Leon thought and said, no, my main purpose at that time was to go there to meet with an intelligence officer, but later I was involved in the biochemical incident. I don't know the specific content and name of Krauser's mission, but it seems to be just a mission to eliminate F-drug users. However, the news he heard was actually the external statement. Ashley, you see they are not going to do bad things, how could they be demolished? Luo Guang said this just to comfort Ashley. He didn't believe that Krauser and others were really going to do that kind of mission. Because this kind of mission does not require the dispatch of the Special Operations Command's direct agents, and those sent out are all people with anti-biochemical experience. Ashley nodded, and the file was full of speculation, and there was no evidence to prove what the reporter said. In fact, what she really cared about was not whether the Lighthouse government had done such a thing, but whether her father had done such a dirty thing. After all, her father's image in her heart has always been great and glorious, so she was so anxious. Leon, take these dog tags with you, don't leave them here. Luo Guang picked up the pile of dog tags next to him. Leon took it. He knew the people with the names on it. He nodded solemnly and put it in his backpack. Luo Guang was about to say that he would continue to set off when he heard Louis say, "Hey, Luo Guang, here is a recording for you by Krause. Hey, your dual field is a bit simple, and there is no audience." Luo Guang came to the place mentioned by Krause in the recording, which was in a corner of the fortress. Except for Luo Guang, the others did not follow, but were led by Louis and hurried to his laboratory. For hundreds of years, this place has been stained with the blood of countless people. I think this place is the most suitable place to settle our feud. As for those spectators, weren't they all killed by you in the freight elevator? Klaus walked out from the other side of the arena. This place is similar to the arena in the Knights Hall. There are high platforms around for people to watch, and the biggest difference is that the space in front is large enough. Huh? Why don't you look the same? You just put on some makeup and came out? So you ran back just to gather your brothers to ambush me? Why did you come here empty-handed this time? Where are your sniper rifle and rocket launcher? Luo Guang added, by the way, I don't think there is any grudge between you and me. I admire you as a former soldier. Klauser, with his upper body bare and blood on his face, snorted coldly, what's the point of those guns not hitting you? They are just firewood sticks. And if I can only rely on guns to defeat you in the end, then what's the point of me pursuing the power from biochemical creatures? As for the grudge, Krauser did not respond. Hearing Krauser's words, Luo Guang laughed while holding his stomach. He came to duel this time, and thought that Krauser would carry a heavy machine gun with 12.7 mm bullets in each hand to deal with him. I didn't expect the other party to give up the magic weapon that could defeat him. In this case, he let Xiaobai, who was ambushing around, chase Leon and the others first. Luo Guang was not afraid that Krause would deceive him, because the time the other party took to hold the gun was enough for Luo Guang to take him down before he pulled the trigger. Krause sneered at Luo Guang and laughed, thinking in his heart that he would see if he could laugh later, and said, "Isn't Leon here? By the way, Leon asked me to ask you a few questions." Luo Guang suddenly returned to his original appearance, as if he was not the one who laughed before. As for Leon's whereabouts, he would not leak it out. Krause replied, "Is it about Javier's action? To come to this place, Luo Guang and the others must pass by the camping site, so Krause put the recording there. You put those materials there on purpose, didn't you?" Klaus did not deny Luo Guang's words, and said, "Yes, I just want to kindly remind that silly boy not to work for the Z government that abandoned his subordinates without saying a word, otherwise he will not be afraid that he will follow in my footsteps." "You are wrong, he was forced to join the Special Operations Command. Do you think he wants to work hard for that kind of dark mission?" He did not say that Leon did not love his country, but that Leon's love range was wider. So that's why that silly boy is always so out of place. In the original plan, his target was Leon, so that this silly boy who was both a comrade in arms and a student could understand his difficulties in betraying his country, recognize his idea of pursuing power, and leave the cannibalistic organization as soon as possible. But he was not good at speaking and had not known Leon in depth. Only now did he realize that he and Leon were the front and back of the same coin and could not reach a consensus at all. Krauser suddenly asked, "Is he willing to be manipulated?" "No, but he wants to protect someone. Weak power cannot protect others. In this case, he should pursue power instead of destroying the things that can become his source of power during the mission. Protecting others is the power that makes Leon strong." "The latter half, do you mean Javier's action?" "That's right. Our sacrifice is only to enable Leon to complete the mission and to allow the government to get the virus." Krauser looked angry, but he destroyed the virus directly, instead of completing the order given to him by his superiors. Luo Guang proposed a possibility: if he didn't destroy the virus, it is very likely that he would be abandoned after the mission. Humph, then why did he save that girl infected with the virus? Doesn't he know that those researchers can also extract the virus from the girl? Because that girl is also a living being, he won't give up. Leon pursues the great righteousness composed of every small righteousness. So he is not the same as us. You and I are not the same as well. You and I are no different. We are both people who pursue power, so when you encounter a biochemical incident, you will act alone. Not only can you avoid exposing your strength, but you can also get the virus of that incident alone. In the end, you have to pretend to be a good person, clean up other viruses, and pretend to be irreconcilable with biochemical viruses. Clauser knew a lot about Luo Guang through a certain channel, such as Luo Guang's strength far exceeded his imagination. This is just your fantasy. Clauser said this not to find people like him, he just couldn't stand Luo Guang's hypocrisy. It doesn't matter whether you admit it or not. You said this just to find excuses for your behavior, and want others to recognize that you are on the right path. You care so much about Leon for this reason. If Krause didn't care about Leon, he wouldn't have put Leon's photo in the tent, and he wouldn't have asked where Leon was going when he met him just now. Luo Guang saw that Krause's expression was a little relaxed, and knew that he was right. The reason is very simple: what would those brothers who didn't come back think of him now? Would they agree with his choice? Krause didn't know, so he wanted to get the answer from Leon. Let's stop chatting here. As your former teammate, let me tell you what power is. Luo Guang shook his head, he was in a hurry. Krause nodded, enough words, let's get the answer from the battle next. As he roared, his muscles began to swell, his strong arms began to swell, cracks appeared on the surface, and then a brand new arm stretched out like a butterfly breaking out of its chrysalis. The left arm became like an arm blade, but the length of the blade was almost half of his height. The entire palm of the other hand became larger, and the fingers became longer and thicker, and the whole hand became a huge claw that could be extended to grab prey. Come on, let me see if your real strength is as strong as Wesker said. Luo Guang felt a little complicated. If Krauser came to him after the accident, maybe he could have one more general under his command. Although there are many familiar characters in the Resident Evil game in this world, the entire Resident Evil timeline has changed a lot since the Raccoon City incident, so it is difficult for him to judge the exact time of the events in the Resident Evil game. And he couldn't keep staring at Leon so that he could intervene when Leon was carrying out Javier's operation. This Javier operation is divided into two parts. Leon, as bait, is sent to the village under the management of Dial to meet with the intelligence officer there, but the intelligence officer in that village has actually been discovered and monitored by Javier. The Lighthouse Country, which learned the news from another intelligence officer, chose to abandon the discovered intelligence officer, and even deliberately sent Leon to meet him, thus attracting Javier's attention. After confirming that Javier's men have moved and were sent out to perform the mission, the special forces led by Krause will set out to raid Javier's research institute, targeting the T. Veronica virus stored there. Speaking of which, Luo Guang is also to blame, because this mission was pushed by the Donald family, and they have used up all the T. Veronica viruses in their hands. Because Luo Guang secretly interfered, these T. Veronica viruses could not reproduce, so in order to obtain more T. Veronica viruses, the Donald family could only send people to find them. At this time, the X-Organization intelligence officer next to Javier got a piece of information, that is, Wesker and Javier reached a deal, which involved the T. Veronica virus. Originally, the entire Javier operation would be very smooth, but the person in charge of intelligence and logistics behind Krauser and his team got the situation wrong and gave them a wrong message, which eventually led to the entire mission being out of control. Javier's men left the base camp not because Leon attracted their attention, but to find Javier's daughter who ran away from home, and the destination happened to be the village where Leon was heading. So Javier did not send many men out. Although 2 covered troop transports were opened, there were actually few soldiers in them. This caused Krauser to misjudge, and the problems that followed were very serious, causing his troops to have to fight and retreat, and finally being forced into Javier's factory by Javier's soldiers. The mission had an unexpected failure, and Krauser naturally did not dare to conceal the situation. He immediately reported and requested support, but the rescue did not come, and even the communication was directly cut off unilaterally, and they were abandoned. In order to survive, Krauser's troops did not even have time to rest. They faced the enemies who kept coming one after another until they had used up all their bullets and grenades. After leading the enemy deep into the hand-to-hand combat, Krauser was the only one left standing in the blood-soaked factory. He himself was also covered in scars and panting, but he had no time to rest. He relied on his fighting will to act, quickly put away his teammates' dog tags, and then left here. As long as he entered the jungle, if the enemy did not have hounds tracking him, he would have a high probability of successfully escaping. However, just as he was about to leave the factory with anger, a figure blocked him, and that person was Wesker, who came to provide after-sales service to Javier. Yes, it was mentioned before that Wesker had other intelligence channels in the Church of Light, and that person was Jack Krauser. Wesker's target was the Plaka parasite. He was used to making several preparations and would not put all his hopes on Ada. At the same time, because he did not have a biochemical virus suitable for Krauser, Krauser could also get the power he longed for through the Plaka parasite, which was a 2-pronged approach. As for why Krauser, who got the Plaka parasite, continued to cooperate with Wesker, it was because Wesker promised him that he would make him stronger after he returned from the Church of Light. Back to the 2 people in the confrontation, Luo Guang heard Krauser mention Wesker's name, and he said the usual sentence, "Wesker and I are friends of life and death, are you sure he didn't lie to you?" The kind of life and death that fights half to death. Krauser grinned and rushed towards Luo Guang. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 286. After the transformation, Krauser's movement speed was twice as fast as before. According to the system, his agility attribute was not out of sync. If Luo Guang just raised his shotgun to shoot, the enemy's blade would reach Luo Guang's neck before he fired, so he chose to retreat quickly while picking up the shotgun to attack Krauser crazily, trying to stop the opponent's momentum. Krauser's claws unfolded webbed feet like those between duck claws, which looked like a shield and directly blocked the shotgun pellets. The blade swept across, Luo Guang slapped the blade with his palm, and at the same time turned over and jumped behind Krauser, and fired another shotgun pellet at the gap on the enemy's back, making a hole. But after a while, the pellet was squeezed out of the hole by Krauser's controlled muscles, and then the wound healed as before. Luo Guang naturally would not stop attacking and just watch Krauser repair his body. It was Krauser who reacted quickly, turned around and stretched out his right claw to counterattack, so that he could not fire a second shot. The enemy's right arm quickly extended, and the sharp claws went straight for Luo Guang's head. Luo Guang leaned down and lowered his head, while charging forward to avoid the enemy's attack. At the same time, he threw away the empty M3 shotgun, pulled out the invisible saber, and slashed at Krauser's right elbow joint. Krauser's arm appeared with insect shell-like armor, but there was no armor at the joint. With Luo Guang's powerful swing, Krauser's arm was easily cut off. But before Luo Guang continued to move, the broken section of the opponent's arm directly extended several tentacles to reconnect the forearm. Your vitality is even more outrageous than Xiaoqiang, Luo Guang cursed in Chinese. Although Krauser didn't understand, he saw the impatience on Luo Guang's face, and then he directly hit Luo Guang with his right arm, and at the same time, his left hand with the knife quickly extended and swept towards Luo Guang. Luo Guang cut off the right arm that was coming at him again, and then kicked the broken part away with one foot, while using the force to perform a roundabout slash to block the sharp blade on Krause's other arm. The use of the sharp blade on Krause's arm is similar to that of a broadsword, and the power of the sword often depends on the swing and sweep of the user. Therefore, Luo Guang chose to use the knife holder to block the end of the enemy's blade, where the force travel is the shortest, so Luo Guang can easily block it with less force, and directly break the opponent's blade. Fortunately, I didn't let Leon and the others wait for me. Luo Guang thought to himself, and then taunted, "Is this your new power? It doesn't seem strange." Krause took the opportunity to retract his arms, and the part of his right arm that Luo Guang had cut off grew back, and the claws turned directly into a shield. The left hand also changed, losing 5 fingers, becoming as slender and sharp as a gun blade, and at the same time, multiple sharp blades extended from the outside of the gun, taking into account the function of the previous arm blade. "I haven't really started yet." As he said that, a burnt lump appeared on his body, which was his protective armor. Luo Guang held the still sharp invisible saber and smiled and replied, "Sorry, I haven't started yet, use whatever you have. I learned a lot from you before, and it's time for me to teach you." Krause was slightly stunned. He didn't expect Luo Guang to say that he learned knowledge from him, but he quickly realized that Luo Guang was talking nonsense again, and was actually mocking him. "What are you in a daze?" But just as he was stunned, Luo Guang had already come to the other party's face, and his left hand was a palm, slapping Krause's chest, directly giving the other party's internal organs a vibration massage. Since the primitive times, humans' flexible hands have been their most powerful weapons, and you actually gave them up. As he spoke, lightning flashed on Luo Guang's feet, catching up with Krause, who was flying backwards, and slashed at Krause's blade left arm with a knife. Krause, who was seriously injured, endured the severe pain and put the shield in his right hand between him and Luo Guang to block the knife. Luo Guang kicked Krause through the wall and flew out of the arena, while he did a backflip and landed steadily. Krause spit out blood and stood up. The shield in his right hand had been shattered, but he did not stop to repair his body. Instead, he used his legs to swing his knife to meet Luo Guang, who rushed over again. Shut up. When the two sides met, Krause's right hand had recovered as before, which was much stronger than that of ordinary people. He did not have claws, shields, or other things. Luo Guang raised the invisible saber and directly cut off the spear blade swung by Krause. At the same time, his left hand slapped Krause's right swing fist and kicked out with his right leg with lightning. Krause raised his knee to prevent Luo Guang's kick, but his speed was not fast enough. Before he could get ready for defense, he flew backwards again, and a bloody hole appeared in his abdomen. This time, Luo Guang did not chase after Krause. He put away the invisible saber and said, "The thing you mutated is much more fragile than the alloy made by modern technology." "You are right." Krause stood up. His arms were no different from those of ordinary people, but the charred hard blocks on them still declared his uniqueness. Using electricity to stimulate cell activity and stimulate potential can easily cause cells to fall into a state of fatigue, so Luo Guang will not keep this state all the time, or stimulate the body cells directly to the limit. He can exert about 50% of the effect of continuous limit activation through methods such as rapid switching, partial activation, and not activating all potential, but the energy consumed is at least reduced by 80%. "Come on!" Krause rushed towards Luo Guang, and threw 2 jabs straight to his face. After being blocked, he immediately followed up with an uppercut to try to bypass Luo Guang's two-handed defense. But even if Luo Guang did not use the ability of electrical energy to stimulate cells, he still maintained a certain advantage in speed. Moreover, Luo Guang used a straight punch, which had a shorter attack range, so he was the first to arrive after being attacked, and hit Krause's chest with a punch, directly breaking his heart. Even if there are parasites in the body, the heart still needs to function, so Luo Guang's heartbreaking blow directly made Krauser's uppercut lose its power. But with parasites, how could this injury end Krauser's life? He roared and clenched his fists again, and hit Luo Guang's chin with his will, but Luo Guang, who did not relax his vigilance at all, dodged it with a backward leap. The uppercut, which was originally bent, suddenly stretched forward, but Luo Guang did not step back, but jumped a big step, just avoiding the opponent's backhand. But Krauser is not a normal person after all. His right hand, which missed the target, suddenly extended and went straight to Luo Guang's chest, knocking Luo Guang, who was jumping back, flying out. Haha, this is interesting. Luo Guang adjusted his balance in the air, and gently patted the dust off his chest after landing steadily. Aren't you going to teach me a lesson? Why are you so far away from me? Krauser hit the target with one blow, and finally regained some self-confidence. Oh, didn't you learn something from my words? Luo Guang retorted, moved his hands and feet, and checked the time. Then he took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. Luo Guang leaned down and rushed towards Krauser like a bullet. Krauser took a straight stance, with his left hand and left foot in front and his dominant hand in the back, which can give his dominant hand a longer force distance. He did not clench his fists, but relaxed his empty palms and waited, ready to use grappling techniques or other attack methods according to the situation. The two sides approached, and Krauser threw a quick punch with his left hand. This was a tentative attack, but something went wrong. In Krauser's horrified eyes, only a flash of lightning remained. Luo Guang had come behind him. Did you forget one thing? Didn't I say I haven't really started yet? Both arms were cut off by Luo Guang directly. He came behind Krauser and the opponent's arms fell to the ground. Tumors appeared at the broken ends of Krauser's arms. This was to prepare for the body to recover again and fight Luo Guang for another 100 rounds, but after multiple serious injuries, the repair time was longer this time. Before he could turn around, he suddenly felt a burst of pain from his back. Something penetrated his defense and killed the Plaka parasite in his chest. Your knife is back to you. Luo Guang passed Krauser and inserted the knife that Krauser had thrown at Louis into the middle of the enemy's shoulder blade. Krauser did not answer, and the recovery of his arms also stopped. He fell to the ground face down. Although he said he was going to give it back to the other party, Luo Guang still walked over, pulled out the knife, wiped off the blood and possible residual toxins on the other party's pants, and took away the knife sheath on the other party's waist. This was to be given to Leon as a souvenir. That's right, Luo Guang thought of something, took out the saber and made the first round of finishing blows on Krauser's body, cutting into pieces. This finishing blow made Krauser unable to continue. But Krauser, who immediately rolled up and tried to avoid the attack, was instantly taken down by Luo Guang, and this time he did not hesitate to remove the other party's legs. How did you become so strong? Krauser, who was lying on the ground, spit out blood, and when he said this, he no longer had the reluctance as before, just to resolve the doubts in his heart. Luo Guang looked at the unwillingness on Krauser's face, but still didn't tell the truth. Mysterious Oriental power. Human potential is much greater than you think. Humph, cough cough. Krauser coughed a few times, and his tone did not change because of the impending death. He said, don't say it if you don't want to. If human potential is really that great, why do humans want to develop biological weapons? I saw the actual combat videos of those biological weapons in the HCF organization, and basically they all ended with the annihilation of the human side. Luo Guang shook his head, took out the broken wing butterfly, and said, you got one thing wrong. Humans can hardly fight against those biological weapons with their flesh alone. But we humans can stand at the top of the world. The biological crises that have occurred so far have not caused any waves in the end and have not threatened the survival of mankind. It is not because of our flesh, but because of the tools and weapons in our hands. Just like no matter how powerful the biological weapons are, they can't withstand the strafing of machine guns. In this duel, you got the wrong method from the beginning. It is the best method for you to use heavy weapons to deal with me. Can I beat you then? Krauser's eyes lost their brilliance, and blood kept flowing on the ground. How is it possible? Luo Guang raised the broken wing butterfly and shot at the broken hand behind him without looking back, killing the parasite in the broken hand. This was the inspiration that the researchers of the Illuminati parasites got from the Regenerator project. Implanting more Plaka parasites in the same host can gain more powerful power without affecting the host's intelligence. However, the number of parasites that can be accommodated in each person's body is limited. The experimenters of the Regenerator project mutated into regenerators because they could not accommodate too many Plaka in their bodies, but the researchers at that time did not realize this. This multi-parasite implantation operation was named Evolution by Sadler, and Krauser was the second person to undergo this operation. Clauses still couldn't let go of his desire to win against Luo Guang. If he had let the parasite in his broken arm escape, he would have had a chance to survive and make a comeback, but he chose to pretend to be dying, and then let the parasite control the broken arm to attack Luo Guang. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. After dealing with the parasite that attacked him, Luo Guang turned around and pointed the muzzle of the broken wing butterfly at Krause. Krause really admitted defeat this time, and he had no means to turn defeat into victory. So he also accepted his fate and pointed to his head, which was to tell Luo Guang where the last parasite in his body was, and then took out his dog tag from his pocket. Tell Leon to bury me and my brother together. You have to tell me this kind of thing in advance, otherwise what will you do if I shoot you when you point at me? Humph, I'm about to die, can't you, my former teammate, say something nice? After saying that, Krause closed his eyes and waited for death to come. The progress of Leon and his team to Lewis Laboratory was much slower than expected. The temple seemed to be very close, but because the cable car across the ravine was damaged, they had to go around a big circle to reach their destination. Lewis had said before that the mercenaries had probably been dealt with, and it seemed to be true. The enemies that Leon and his team encountered along the way were basically the white-robed cultists. Although the cultists did not have guns, they were also difficult to deal with, because Sadler had performed rituals for all of them, so the cultists that appeared in front of Leon and his team were all cultists with insects already exploded. Therefore, the progress was even slower, and it seemed that they could not solve the problems in their bodies before the helicopter arrived. Simmons tried every possible way to get Luo Guang out of the task of rescuing Ashley as soon as possible, and to achieve his goal, he had to talk about interests. Since Luo Guang and his team landed on the island, he asked the soldiers who were previously responsible for the blockade to enter the village and the castle to collect information about the incident, and thus learned about the existence of the Plaka parasite and its ability to control humans. So he directly used the matter of the Plaka parasite to persuade the forces that had blocked him before. Although the Donald family received Luo Guang's order to delay time, the other organizations of Organization X gave up stopping Simmons, so they failed to delay time in the end. So after coordinating the forces of all parties, Simmons took out his mobile phone and sent a message to Luo Guang. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 287. For Simmons, an ordinary agent who has a lot of people to replace him and the daughter of a president who is about to change his term are not as important as his beloved Ada, and from the intelligence collected by his men in the castle, the Plaka parasite is also very useful to the X organization. If the organization can obtain the power of the parasite, the lives of Leon and Ashley are not so important. It is also their honor to use them as experimental materials for the Plaka parasite and contribute their lives to the X organization. However, even if you think so, The current president is still in office, so in Simmons's expectation, it is not unacceptable to sacrifice only one rookie agent in the end. As for Luo Guang's failure to report the Plaka parasite, Simmons did not think that Luo Guang deliberately concealed it. First of all, Luo Guang had mentioned the target Amber that Ada was pursuing before. He knew what Ada had done in Raccoon City, so this Amber was likely related to the Plaka parasite. Secondly, his men had already blocked that area. After the mission, the information about the Plaka parasite in the village castle would still belong to the property of the X organization. Sooner or later, he would get it anyway, so Luo Guang didn't need to risk being seen by others to send a message to inform himself of this. Finally, Luo Guang had captured Aida before, and had brushed Simmons's favor several times, so that he chose to believe in Luo Guang's loyalty when there was a reasonable explanation. No matter what, Luo Guang was still trying to capture Aida for him. "Hey, this is Mike Vulture #1, are you on the channel?" Leon was hiding behind the bunker to deal with the Baneling cultists, and suddenly heard a voice coming from the headset. Mike was a helicopter pilot that Hannigan knew before he joined the Special Operations Command. After retiring from the army, he had been doing some small jobs to make a living. Sometimes, like now, he would do things for Hannigan that were inconvenient for the Lighthouse Nation to dispatch their men. However, there is one thing worth mentioning, that is, in order to protect Mike, Hannigan basically would not explain the specific information of the mission to him, and letting him be a transporter was the best protection for Mike. It would be difficult to trouble the Spanish military to take action in the kidnapping of the president's daughter, so Hannigan asked civilians for help. However, it was not easy to get the armed helicopter, so we had to rely on the connections of the X organization to find a military helicopter that was being repaired. This helicopter model was a -1H, and 2 auxiliary fuel tanks were added to meet the needs of the stay time for this mission. After modification on both sides, 2 30mm caliber aircraft cannons and 2 M-261 19-mounted 2.75-inch Sea Serpent-70 rocket launchers were added. Obviously, Hannigan had anticipated that Leon and his team would definitely need strong firepower support. Without waiting for Leon to answer, Mike continued, "Wow, it seems I'm in time for the party." Mike soon discovered the location of Leon and his team and the large number of enemies in front, so he drove the armed helicopter over there. The searchlight was turned on, shining on the enemy in front of Leon. Mike smiled excitedly and pressed the weapon launch button on the helicopter. First, 2 rockets were used as an opening ceremony, directly blowing the enemy in the middle of the enemy to pieces, while the enemies closer to Leon and his team were quickly harvested by the 2 aircraft cannons on the armed helicopter. "Vulture 1, are you okay?" Hannigan's communication also came. After Leon confirmed that the enemy could not pose a threat to him, he took out the communicator and said, "We are fine, thank you for your support." Hearing that Leon was safe, Hannigan did not look very happy, and asked directly, "Have the parasites in your body been cleaned up?" "Sorry, the road was a bit congested and delayed the time." Leon asked apologetically, "How long can the helicopter stay?" "With Mike's assistance, we should be able to go to the laboratory where parasites can be cleaned up soon." "Sorry." Hannigan continued, "The superiors have new instructions. You have been there for too long. Let you get on the plane and leave this dangerous place first, and then let Vulture 2 be responsible for continuing the investigation and confirming the tools for cleaning up the parasites." It sounds like Simmons has considered the life and death of Leon and his team. What? But it will take more time to do this. Leon was a little surprised that his superiors would give such an order. Even if he was not good at math, his subordinates should be able to calculate how to save the most time. Through the reflection of his eyes, Hannigan glanced at Simmons, who was tapping on the phone on the command desk behind him and did not monitor the communication, and whispered, "Vulture 1, the superior's order cannot be ignored. I suggest you don't disobey the order. Don't worry, I have already told Mike, you guys hurry up, Hannigan whispered without a beginning or an end. This is the second time Hannigan and Leon have cooperated, and the two sides have a lot of tacit understanding. Leon knows what the other party means. She has helped herself in a circle, so he should not embarrass her. Mike, we are ready to move forward, you keep an eye on us. Hey, leave it to the great helicopter pilot Mike. Let me teach these bastards a lesson. Mike agreed immediately, and after confirming that the enemy had no weapons to threaten him, he hovered in front of Leon and moved forward slowly, controlling the weapons to bring disaster to Leon's enemies. Most of those white-robed cultists were residents of the island enslaved by the Sadler family. In order to defend against the enemy, these residents also received some training in the use of firearms and weapons before being parasitized. But when faced with Luo Guang, who was so aggressive that he could block his control ability, Master Sadler, like Krauser, felt that the power of parasites was more trustworthy than swords, guns, and bullets, so he killed all the cultists with explosive insects. In this case, these cultists lost the ability to use heavy machine guns, RPG-7, 8-barrel anti-aircraft guns and other weapons, and could only let Mike show off his power in the sky. So under the cover of Mike, Leon and others moved forward quickly, and before they reached the temple, the cultists who blocked the way were all annihilated. Hey, I don't have much ammunition. We will meet at the evacuation point, remember to hurry up, you only have 40 minutes left. Hannigan deliberately arranged the evacuation point on the open ground on the other side of the temple, so that Leon and others would need to pass through the temple to reach the evacuation point, just passing by Lewis's laboratory. This was the roundabout plan she thought of. Leon looked at Lewis and asked how long it would take to eliminate the parasites. Lewis replied with his mouth, "It will take at most 5 minutes, and it will only take about 10 minutes to get to the laboratory." Got it, be careful. Time was a bit tight, but most of the enemies should have been eliminated in the previous battle, so Leon nodded and replied to Mike. "I'll treat you to a bar after we go back. I know a good place, but I just need a good brother," Mike answered cheerfully, pulling the control stick, and the helicopter began to rise. But Sadler would not let go of the helicopter pilot who had eliminated many of his believers so easily. The hidden bugs, a monster that Luo Guang and his friends had never seen since they came to the island, suddenly flew out of the temple, and these fast-breeding, low-cost bugs were Sadler's main force in defending the temple. Before, due to the shortage of food, Sadler put the hidden bugs in the temple into a deep sleep, and when the helicopter appeared, he had just awakened all the hidden bugs, so most of the hidden bugs were immediately sent out. As long as Ashley was still there, his plan to control the world was still possible, so he must not let the helicopter take away the president's daughter. "Be careful of the flying insects in front, Mike." Leon raised the SL-8-1 sports rifle in his hand and shot at the hidden insects in the sky, directly shooting down the leading one. It had been dark for a long time, and the normal color of these hidden insects was gray-brown. When the moon was covered by clouds, it was difficult to detect without activating their color-changing energy. The buzzing sound was covered by the sound of the helicopter propeller, causing Leon to find the enemy through the searchlight on the ground when the hidden insects were not far from the helicopter. Mike reacted very quickly, and the cannons on both sides began to shoot to block the enemy, while controlling the helicopter to fly backwards. Looking at the helicopter that was forced to be unable to aim by the hidden insects, Lewis looked around and found a fixed machine gun not far away. "Leon, I'll use the machine gun over there, because it was a bit far away," Lewis told Leon first. Leon responded and replaced the magazine for the weapon in his hand. Lewis ran to the fixed machine gun, put down the 2 RPG-7 rocket launchers on his back, looked at the machine gun with the belt already loaded, recalled the control method in his mind, and quickly pulled the bolt, loaded the bullet, aimed at the dense swarm of insects chasing the helicopter in the sky and pulled the trigger. The machine gun roared, and the flames spit out, instantly harvesting a field of hidden insects. These hidden insects are different from the previous ones. Sadler can give them orders with that special organ, so soon a small number of hidden insects turned around and rushed towards Lewis. As for Leon, the gun in his hand did not pose a great threat to the hidden insects, so Sadler ignored it before. Taking advantage of the opportunity that Lewis' machine gun briefly stopped the swarm of insects, Mike balanced the nose of the machine, aimed at the enemy and whizzed out the remaining 2 rockets, blasting 2 beautiful fireworks in the enemy group, and then began to increase the altitude. He didn't believe that the insects could fly higher than the helicopter, so he could use the height advantage to attack the insects, but the problem now was that constantly operating the helicopter to perform various maneuvers would make the stay time shorter and shorter. Damn it, if he had no choice, he could only apply to go back and refuel. Leon found a small wave of hidden bugs separated from the swarm, and immediately turned his gun to shoot to stop them, and shouted, "Lewis, there are bugs heading towards you." I saw it even though he was a researcher. Lewis, as a man, also liked guns. He smiled unconsciously while shooting the machine gun. He pulled the trigger and directly controlled the fixed machine gun to sweep at the small group of hidden bugs, thinking of shooting down all the enemies. If it weren't for the machine gun limiting the shooting speed, Lewis would have run out of bullets long ago according to his way of holding the trigger. But he was obviously a little too proud of himself, and didn't check the situation of the ammunition belt at all times. The small group of enemies had not been dealt with yet, and the bullets of the fixed machine gun were all used up. Without hesitation, Lewis did not try to replace the ammunition belt for the fixed machine gun, but picked up the Thompson submachine gun to shoot the enemies in the air. The drum magazine provided enough bullets to shoot down the first few hidden bugs, while the last few hidden bugs were dealt with by Leon. The 2 of them emptied their magazines almost at the same time. The last hidden bug rushed to Lewis' face. He was changing the drum magazine of his submachine gun and had no time to pull out his pistol. He looked at the hidden bug with the sickle in horror. Woof! Ziobai, who had already joined the others, rushed out from the side and knocked the hidden bug away. Lewis pulled out his pistol to deal with the last hidden bug and said to Ziobai, "Well done." However, this was just a small group of enemies sent to deal with Lewis. There were still many hidden bugs chasing Mike. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. There's a problem with the helicopter. The crisis on Lewis' side was resolved, but something happened on Mike's side. The balance of the helicopter was wrong and it would tilt to one side, and a strange sound came from the fuselage, as if something was crawling outside. Mike turned his head to look at the glass on the co-pilot side, and his heart tightened. A hideous monster appeared on the glass on one side and spit acid at Mike through the glass, quickly softening the glass. Damn it, Mike held the joystick with one hand to stay away from the swarm of insects, and pulled out the G19 pistol on his chest with the other hand, and fired several shots at the gap in the glass torn by the hidden bug, solving the hidden bug. There were no spare ammunition boxes around Lewis' fixed machine guns, and he suddenly remembered that there was an 8-barrel anti-aircraft gun in this place, but it was not close to them. Leon took the intercom, "Mike, retreat first." Mike's helicopter had basically used up all the weapons and ammunition, and the altitude had increased, so Leon could no longer provide cover. When Mike ran out of ammunition, he also wanted to retreat. Even if all the hidden bugs were dealt with, he would still be in danger when he went to the evacuation point, and he would only be able to use the small pistol to protect himself. "Got it, take care." Hearing this, Mike immediately turned the nose of the plane and left the Holy Island. But he did not forget to report to Hannigan, "Beauty, something is wrong, I have to retreat first." This was not in Hannigan's plan. Although she would go around in circles to help Leon, she would not disobey the orders of her superiors, so she asked for the reason to make it easier to report. Why? After Mike confirmed that the helicopter was fine and there was no abnormal sound, he said, "Beauty, you didn't tell me that the enemy had an air force." If it weren't for the people on the ground who helped me block some flying insects, I would have reported directly to heaven. Really can't do it. Hannigan had to keep him, not to act too much. Mike immediately replied, even if there is a way, I don't need to retreat. Got it. Hannigan saw that Simmons, who was paying attention to this side, didn't say anything, so he asked Mike to retreat and arranged for him to get the next supply. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tong Miao. Chapter 288. Luo Guang, who was chasing Leon and the others, received a text message from Simmons, but the content was nothing special. He just asked him to escort Leon and the others away and continue the mission, so he replied casually and put away his phone. Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. After Luo Guang finished solving Claus's matter, he continued to arrange the next plan while rushing on the road. First of all, there is the problem of Louis. He must not leave here with Luo Guang or Leon, otherwise he will be controlled as soon as he gets off the plane and then be forced to join the Research Institute of Organization X. Luo Guang could probably imagine the situation, which was to let Louis work for free on the condition that he would not be held accountable for the bad things he did at Umbrella and the kidnapping of the president's daughter. However, he did not directly use the resources of the GIMZ force. Instead, he chose the Donald family's peripheral network to assist, and asked Hank to send Carlos over to help. But what he didn't expect was that Hank texted back to Luo Guang and said that Carlos was now leading the Angel team on an antibiochemical mission. This mission was received today, but because there was no signal in the underground mine where Luo Guang was at that time, and the matter was relatively urgent, Hank decided to take over the mission and dispatch the mission based on the authority Luo Guang gave him. Carlos team. Originally, Luo Guang planned to let Carlos, a former Umbrella mercenary and a relatively upright guy, receive Louis. The two of them were also close in personality, but since that didn't work, he had to let Hank take action in person. In this way, even if Louis has any misunderstandings about the GIMZ unit, Hank can ensure that Louis cannot escape. After arranging things, another message suddenly came from Simmons. Have you confirmed the mission target location? The target has gone to the Illuminati temple and is expected to meet the enemy leader. Is it related to the Illuminati religion? No, there should be something wrong with her mission and she couldn't get the amber, so she went into danger. Her safety is our first priority. Luo Guang lied to Simmons that Ada had gone to the temple just to make Simmons worry about Ada's safety. Ada's location on the island was much closer to the temple, and the route was completely different from theirs, so it was normal that the two sides did not encounter each other. Shortly before the Krause battle ended, the helicopter arrived on the island, but because Luo Guang was in the arena on the edge of the island, he only heard the sound and did not see the helicopter. On the way to chase Leon, he was still worried about whether the helicopter pilot would be killed by the vehicle Nemesis. Unexpectedly, he actually saw the helicopter flying away from the island. As for whether it was the helicopter that carried Ada away, Luo Guang felt that it was unlikely. After all, Amber was still in his hands. Ada, who has professional qualities, will naturally not leave sadly when there is still hope of completing the task. Leon and the others did not take the main entrance of the temple, but took the secret passage on the other side. Fortunately, Luo Guang himself left new tracking pheromones on Xiaobai, otherwise it would be really difficult to find him. This secret passage was dug by Louis just in case, and it can lead directly to his research room. Seeing the light of a flashlight appearing in front of him, Luo Guang only made footsteps after confirming with Xiaobai that they were also in the secret passage, and at the same time shouted Leon and the others' names. Luo Guang, you're here. Ashley looked a little happy when she saw Luo Guang. Luo Guang smiled back, and then said to Leon, I saw the helicopter when I came here. Is that the helicopter we used to evacuate? Leon nodded and briefly explained the situation. Louis said angrily, it would have been better if we had been in that anti-aircraft turret at that time. Then we could have killed all the hidden bugs, and then boarded the plane and left immediately after cleaning up the internal parasites. Ashley, are you feeling uncomfortable now? Luo Guang asked. The feeling of chest tightness came back again, and I was also coughing and bleeding, so Louis helped me give me the final suppressant. They didn't think they should save the medicine just because they were close to Louis's laboratory, because the closer they were there, the closer they were to Sadler, and they didn't dare to gamble. Here we are. After Louis finished speaking, he made a silencing gesture, and then put his ear against the iron sheet. After confirming that there was no sound, he removed the bricks on one side and then opened the door with both hands. This door is actually an iron cabinet, blocking the entrance to the secret passage. The conditions were limited, so Louis could only use this crude method to cover the entrance and exit of the secret passage. This is my research room. I locked it up before leaving. It seems Sadler hasn't had time to search it yet. Although Louis usually looked carefree, the research room was very tidy and things were arranged in an orderly manner, so he could tell at a glance that nothing here had been touched. With that said, he immediately moved out the machine that removed internal parasites, and then asked Luo Guang and Leon to find some hidden parts and install them on the surgical machine. Ashley, you go first, Leon said. Ashley didn't waste time playing the game of you let me, I let you, and directly accepted his suggestion. Okay. Lie down there. Louis turned on the power of the surgical machine and pointed to the operating chair next to him. Luo Guang looked at the exposed wires and circuit boards on the operating chair and said, "Is this made of some green leather technology?" "What is green skin technology?" Louis typed on the keyboard and entered parameter settings without looking back. The name of an alien creature in a novel can be used to build tanks and airplanes out of scrap metal, and those things still work well, no worse than industrial products made on specialized production lines. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. I just think you're praising me. It's not easy for Louis to save all kinds of materials to make this thing. Sadler will not support him in making this kind of thing that eliminates Plaka. However, because the Illuminati had not yet overcome the problem of parasites causing the weakening of human cognitive abilities at that time, researchers were not forced to implant parasites, and Sadler had no choice but to turn a blind eye to Louis. Because accidents will always happen when doing experiments, other researchers supported Louis in coming up with this thing. Due to an accidental infection, the radioactive treatment device he built that was still in the experimental stage had a test subject. Unfortunately, the treatment failed. The parasite was burned to death by the exogenous radiation, and the researcher did not escape the disaster and died of shock. Although it failed, Louis also obtained enough experimental data and completed improvements in secret, achieving the function of accurately and fully automatically removing parasites from the body. This does not mean that the surgery is without any risks. Although radiation of specific wavelengths can be used to kill the Plaka parasite in the body, the host has to endure great pain because the parasites often parasitize on the host's nerves. Louis started the surgical machine preparation process, and then the surgical chair automatically rotated 180 degrees, and the upper robotic arm gathered above Ashley's chest. He handed a towel to Ashley. "Ashley, this operation will be very painful. You have to be mentally prepared." Seeing Louis's posture, Ashley felt uneasy. She took the towel and bit it in her mouth. "Is there no anesthesia or anything like that?" Leon asked worriedly. Louis shook his head and said, "Sorry, anesthesia doesn't work either, because it's the parasite that hurts." After saying that, he turned to comfort Ashley. "The parasite in your body is only in the middle stage now, so the pain is not life-threatening. It is much better than digging out the parasite myself. Do it well. Are you ready?" Ashley nodded. "Then let's get started." Louis hit the confirmation button. The three mechanical arms emitted blue-white light, which looked very similar to the sacred fire of the Salazar family. On the monitor of the surgical machine, The 3 green crosshairs all turned red after aiming at the location of the parasite in Ashley's body. The power of the radiation increased, penetrating Ashley's clothes and focusing on the placa parasite in her body. The pain immediately surged into her heart, and Ashley couldn't help but scream, and the towel she had bitten fell on her chest. Leon looked at Ashley with a worried look, and Luo Guang walked over, asked Ashley to hold his hand, and then asked Louis a question, speaking of which, is this kind of surgery okay without taking off clothes? That's not necessary. It's not a laser. Although the temperature will rise in the location where the radiation is concentrated, it won't set your clothes on fire, Louis replied with regret. Looking at Louis's expression, Luo Guang felt that he and Carlos must be able to chat well. Leon said speechlessly, "You guys don't worry about surgery. Don't be so clumsy." Luo Guang stopped Leon's next words based on metaphysical reasons. Louis answered Leon's concerns from a scientific perspective, "You are all in the early stage, so the problem is not big. If Ashley drinks black water, the parasites in the body will be matured and enter the middle stage, which will be troublesome." Ashley's surgery was just as he expected, without any major problems. It was completed in a minute or two. Judging from the screen of the surgical machine, the parasites had been crushed, and then the remains of the parasites would be slowly digested and excreted by the body. In vivo. Seeing that Ashley was fine, he asked, "Luo Guang, you seem to be able to crack those automatic machine guns before." Luo Guang helped Ashley, who was a little weak, and replied, "That's right. Then you try using my computer to clear out those research materials and samples in the storage room. The defense computer and the research computer are not connected to the same database, so Luo Guang did not clear the research data before." "I'm fine, Luo Guang. Go ahead and clean up those files." Ashley sat on the chair, raised her head and said. "Yes." Luo Guang released his hands and said, "It's your turn, Leon. Do you need someone to accompany you?" "No need," Leon shouted as usual on the operating chair, and he wasn't much quieter than Ashley. While Leon was cleaning up the parasites in his body, Luo Guang sat in front of the computer and quickly cleaned up the data. The Illuminati sect really doesn't do anything good. Umbrella Company also develops several medical drugs. Luo Guang quickly browsed the names of research projects while cleaning up, still complaining. By the time Leon had cleaned up the parasites in his body, Louis had already packed up his things, and there weren't many things, just a notebook and a few books. Leon panted, wiped the sweat from his forehead, stood up and went to the table nearby, where he and Ashley put their belongings before surgery. "Eagle's nest, this is Condor 1, we've cleaned up the internal parasites. How long until Mike comes back?" "1 hour at the fastest. To ensure safety, we will send another helicopter to cover you." It was sent by the Donald family to cooperate with Luo Guang's plan. Rather than being questioned later by Simmons about the helicopter he belongs to, it is better to let the Donald family come forward secretly. Even if he is found out, Luo Guang will have the Donald family to support him and will not affect him. "Copy that, we're going to the extraction point as planned." Leon contacted the Eagle's Nest, and Luo Guang, who had cleaned up the research materials, was also talking to Louis. Mainly, Luo Guang told him about the next retreat plan and made some improvements based on the other party's suggestions. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. "Won't Louis come with us?" Ashley asked. Leon also came over and said, it would be better for Louis not to appear in those people's sight. He did the same thing. When he contacted the Eagle Nest, he never mentioned Louis. "I worked so hard to help you, but don't take me to jail." Louis could see that Ashley had doubts in her heart, but he didn't want her to be stained by the darkness on her pure white body, so he made up a reason. Ashley suddenly realized what Louis was worried about, and wondered if she could ask her father to pardon Louis. However, after thinking about it, this seemed not good, and her father might not agree, so she quickly gave up the idea. "I will help you keep the secret." Finally, Ashley nodded seriously and said to Lewis. Like a gentleman, Lewis saluted Ashley. "Thank you for this beautiful lady." After talking about Lewis, he went to Leon and asked the question that he had been holding back for a long time. Before, because time was tight, he didn't ask during some rush hours. Now he can finally say it. "Luo Guang, what about Ada? What are you going to do?" "You don't have to worry about Ada. Her life is not in danger, and she can run the first time." "Are she worried that she won't be able to run the second time?" "What I want to know is the specific plan." After Luo Guang and Leon looked at each other for 2 seconds, he said, "Ada has joined Wesker's organization and works for Wesker." "This is true." He didn't say any nonsense about a Leon policeman falling in love with a thief. It's useless, otherwise Leon wouldn't have been obsessed with the bad woman who deceived him after leaving Raccoon City. According to my inference, her organization will send someone here to pick her up. At that time, I will take down the helicopter or boat, and then contact my superiors." Luo Guang paused and said, "Then let the helicopter make an emergency landing, or it would be fine if the ship sank halfway, and I had a reason to explain to my superiors that Ada took the opportunity to escape." "But wouldn't it be dangerous? You have encountered so many traffic accidents. Have you ever had any accidents? Are you worried about this?" Luo Guang looked at the vehicle killer in front of him and said, "Anyway, I know it well. If I go with her, I can still kill myself." Ashley asked curiously, "Leon, do you often get into traffic accidents?" "Well, I'm just used to it," Leon replied a little embarrassedly when he was asked this question. Lewis looked up and down at Leon, very curious as to how he survived to this day. Under Luo Guang's guidance, Ada's topic was brought to the topic of Leon being a vehicle nemesis, and he relaxed a little. Just when he was about to add a new topic, the radio sounded in Lewis's research room, or rather on the entire Holy Island. "My little assistant, can you help me save my life?" What came out from the radio was Ada's voice.